And I had a fantasy about being able to be with a female and control her. I was never good at being a male.
So before we begin, I just wanted to ask you what name you prefer to use and what pronoun.
DOC, I feel like if I was in a DOC setting and a female setting, I would do just fine. I wouldn't be pressured for sex. I wouldn't be in these ridiculous circumstances where I'm pressed to have sex. And I feel like if I wasn't treated like an invalid.
Sorry, and I just realized in your sex offender assessment that you do identify as female, correct?
This hearing is being conducted in consideration for the parole application for Allison Bouchard, inmate number 433904. He is serving a sentence of 20 years suspended after 8 years with 25 years probation for illegal sexual contact with a minor.
Your name, your preferred name, and your state ID for us, please.
Justin DeMoss, Jade.
Mr. Shepherd, please state your name and number for the record.
Savannah Shepherd, 382222.
We are about to watch a series of parole hearings where they all have one thing in common, or I should say two things in common. One is that they've all committed SA against a child, and two is that they are all transgender. It's going to span across 3 different states: Iowa, Connecticut, and Utah. Now, I do want to point something out because this is not a statement at all. This is just purely on the data that we have seen doing parole hearings. Having covered over 3,000 parole hearings, very few, less than a fraction of 1% are transgender inmates. But 100% of that small bucket are in for crimes of a sexual nature. I don't know if this is just a statistical anomaly with what we are showing across our limited bucket of states, or if there's some stronger data point that others can look at around this. I'm not making an agenda statement here. I'm only sharing my sample of data that we have seen, again, covering over 3,000 parole hearings across 6 different states over the past 2+ years. With that, let's jump in.
And I had a fantasy about being able to be with a female and control her. I was never good at being a male. I tried for my family. I became codependent and a huge people pleaser and ignoring my needs. This led to even more damage in my life. I saw the girl on her bike. I kidnapped her. I sodomized her. I threatened her. And I wanted to feel that power over her. Unfortunately, this has haunted me for the rest of my life. I'm sorry for what I did.
Good morning. We're on the record now. This is the time set for a rehearing for Terrence Gallegos. Is that you?
Yes, sir.
And do you go by Terrence?
I go by Tara.
Tara?
Yeah, I'm transgender.
Right. How would Terra?
Tarra.
And do you prefer Ms. Gallegos?
Yes,
All right.
please.
My name is Blake Hills. I'm a member of the Board of Pardons and Parole, and I've been assigned to conduct the hearing.
Okay.
I need to swear you in, so please raise your right hand. Do you promise that the testimony you will give will be truthful and accurate?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You can keep your glasses on. You don't have to. Better for you to be able to see.
Yes.
Did you receive at least 7 days written notice of the hearing?
Yes, sir.
Did you receive a blue disclosure packet?
Yes, sir.
And recently there was a psychosexual evaluation. Did you receive that
Yes, sir.
from Dr. Malm?
Yes, sir.
Are there any issues with the disclosure materials, or were they generally fine?
No, they're accurate. You know, she crossed her T's and dotted her I's, and the whole packet is accurate. I've read it a couple times.
Okay. You ready to go forward, or do you need?
No, I'm ready.
Okay.
I've been ready for a long time.
You read the blue packet where it describes the offenses, I imagine.
Yes, sir.
Is that an accurate description of the offenses, or is there anything you need to change?
No, that's pretty much it.
Can you tell me why it happened?
So my childhood was pretty difficult. And when I told about being a little bit different, I knew so from the beatings. I was pretty much abused my whole life until the age of 18 when I was able to decide for myself to stay or leave. Growing up in a strict Catholic family was not healthy for me, because there was abuse, drug abuse, alcohol abuse, and not being able to be me. In 1978, when I said something about it, it was unheard of, um, especially in my family. And I was never able to understand fully what it was to be male because of all these feelings that were going on inside. I've gotten married a couple times to try to bring home a woman to satisfy my father, and it worked, but it wasn't good enough for me. I felt like I had no power and I had no control over my life, that being the people pleaser that I was for so many years since I was a kid. I mean, even at the age of 12, when I did something wrong and my father hit me in the head, and the next day I had a seizure. Um, when I went to the doctor, I was told to say I jumped off one of the bunk beds. I At that time I didn't understand why. There was a lot of like values and traits that were not given to me as a child. I did not know a lot of them as an adult until I came to prison. I was up for days on meth, and I had a fantasy about being able to be with a female and control her. I was never good at being a male. I tried for my family. I became codependent and a huge people pleaser and ignoring my needs. This led to even more damage in my life. Um, I I saw the girl on her bike. I kidnapped her. I sodomized her. I threatened her, and I wanted to feel that power over her. Unfortunately, this has haunted me for the rest of my life. Um, I'm sorry for what I did. I will never do this again. Whether I'm released or not, I'm not the same person that I was when I first came in here. And I know now truly what empathy is. Um, and I've taken care of a lot of my past. When you ask me if I had several days to prepare, it's been a roller coaster, but I need to say that it's also been a roller coaster since I came in. Realizing what I've done. In November of 2005, I was drugged and raped here in Draper. And that's when I started learning about empathy. Before that, I didn't know what it was. I put myself in the shoes of the victim, her family, my family, society, friends. And every night before I go to bed since then, it's always been prayers for forgiveness.
Let me ask you if I could see these video screens. This is being broadcast online. I do not know if anyone from the victim's family or the victim is watching, but if they are, is there anything you would want to say to them?
Yes, I am so sorry There's nothing I could ever do to repay for what I did. I'm so happy that I was taken off the street and away from drugs. I have been clean for a long time. I have transitioned from SOTP and I have graduated from the ASAP drug program conquest. My time here has been difficult, but not as difficult as yours. And if I could, I would just take it back. I never meant to cause any harm. So many times I have wanted to kill myself over this. And I haven't. I've learned to live with it. I've learned to pray and ask for forgiveness from you guys, from your family, from my family. I don't have much family no more, and I just pray that someday you'll be able to forgive me.
You said you agree with the psychosexual evaluation.
Yes?
Is there anything that you disagreed with?
No. I was pretty honest. Lately, I've been pretty honest and pretty transparent. Not only with myself, but with staff, with um, the therapist, the doctor that gave me the evaluation. I was upfront, honest about everything. I did as good as I could on the test. Everything is accurate.
You mentioned participating in programs. You willing to talk to me about those?
Yes, I was.
First,
Which one?
first, let's talk about SOT and then we'll talk about drug treatment after that. So
Okay.
as far as the SOTP, which for anyone watching is the sex offense treatment program, did you think that was worthwhile or was it something to just put in time to keep you from getting bored?
No, I've learned a lot of values, a lot of principles doing that program.
Tell me which ones.
I've learned how to have integrity for myself. I learned how to have motivation for myself and for the things I do. I learned how to accept the changes, whether they were uncomfortable or not. I've learned how to be transparent, be honest, take accountability for what I've done, be responsible, and hold myself to a higher standard. The principles that I've learned is just that what I've done was wrong. What was done to me was wrong. My childhood was wrong. But I wake up every day and I think about the abandonment issues and the rejection issues that I've had. And I've gotten rid of them with being self-sufficient, having self-motivation for myself. I can no longer stand in the foundation that had so many cracks when I was a child that I took as an adult as well. And since coming here, the change has been magnificent. Whether I'm released or not, I will continue this change because the change has been good.
Let me ask you if I could. These things that you mentioned that you learned in sex offense treatment, I'm sure you recognize this crime was absolutely horrific, right?
It was heinous.
How has what you have learned going to affect your behavior in whether this sort of thing happens again? In other words, did you learn anything about committing the crime and how to prevent those thoughts, feelings, actions, and behaviors in the future?
Yes. The first thing that I have learned is I needed to get my addiction under control. So in 2015, March of 2015 was my last write-up. My first and only write-up for having a negative UA, for having a positive UA. And that was my first step right there, was as I signed the addiction, a substance abuse-free contract while in SOTP. I got the write-up after I completed SOTP. I take full responsibility because it was, I ran out of time for the UA to happen. They give you 2 hours and I ran out of time. I took responsibility for that. And then right afterwards, when I went to the board, they wanted to send me to Conquest. The second thing I learned was, so I learned to get my substance abuse under control. I have done that. It's been proven. I've had a lot of UAs. They've all been negative. So the second thing I learned from SLTP was to be accountable. To know that I'm not the only one who counts. To think of others. The third thing I learned was the most huge one that I could ever learn, and that was having empathy for others. That's when I actually started caring not only about myself, but putting others' needs of empathy first. Knowing that people are people, they hurt too. I learned my triggers. My triggers are being around my family, seeing them. My risk factors are taking that step towards being back in my addiction, being around my family members again who are in addiction. My family members are not healthy, and that's why I'm choosing to not be involved with them. Having a phone call is fine, but the first time that I hear anything that my triggers or my risk factors recognize, I will immediately hang up. I have done this. I've been doing this while being here in this prison, in this new facility. I think the fourth thing that I've learned for SOTP is to stay my path of change, to know that, I can make amends and I can move forward, and that I needed to forgive myself. Be transparent, be honest, disclose everything that I've ever done, and accept everything that I've ever done that has been bad. There's a lot of things that have happened to me that I have not talked about in therapy. With Clint Shumway, I was in therapy with him the longest. I disclosed a lot, but there's a lot of other things that from my childhood that are really, really hard to relive. And so therefore I am continually to help have mental health in my life. Talking to others about the things that have happened to me, but there's sometimes, mental health right now is a struggle to get to because there's not very many workers.
Right.
And it's really, really hard to disclose some of the things I've went through and trust another inmate with that information, because not everybody's honest here.
Sure. I want to make sure we have time to talk about Conquest. So tell me what you learned in Conquest, if anything.
Conquest to me was awesome. I passed every UA that I was given there. I admitted my drug use. I admitted that I kidnapped and sexually assaulted, molested, and threatened a young girl, a child. And I was able to admit that in an open group of 12. I think at that time I was the only one in that group that was on a sex offense as well as drug charges. And that was very hard. That was hard to overcome. It's hard to admit something like that to a non-sex offender. And I was okay. I I didn't feel like my safety was in danger. I accepted it. I didn't walk with my head to the ground. I held my head up high because I took accountability for what I did. I accepted what I did. But I think the most thing that my biggest accomplishment there was I had a really good therapist in Miss Carlisle. And we had one-on-one therapies. I was given 2 hours a week instead of one for one-on-ones because of some severe mental health issues. And I was able to write a letter to my father. My father passed away in 2005. I'm over there in 2017, 2018, and 2019. I spent a lot of time there. I liked the environment of so much positivity. It felt like a bit of freedom in society. I was able to write this letter to my father because there was a lot of things that was done that I wasn't able to tell him and disclose to him while he was alive. And that haunts me. It haunted me until I wrote that letter. It was a long letter. And it was so good that I had a therapist to recognize this. That was the biggest thing that I was able to get off my chest. And that was one of the big ones to rid myself of wanting to use, wanting to addiction in my life. I mean, don't get it wrong. I mean, I want to say that there's drugs all over the place in here,
Right.
all over. It's nonstop. I mean, I'm being honest about that. And I have chosen a path to keep my change of growth going for myself. And addiction, me messing up my sobriety, is not part of that. It's not part of the plan.
All right. Let me tell you, we're almost out of time. We have about 2 minutes left. I appreciate you answering my questions. Is there anything we have not talked about that the board needs to know?
My current write-ups, I want to explain that.
Okay,
So I am not. I just want to explain that real quick.
the fighting one
The
and,
fighting one. I have become a beacon of light for the gay and transgender community here in this prison. This prison is a lot different because they house us with everybody, gang members, everybody. And there's a lot of abuse that goes on here. There's a lot of injustices that go on here. And it's hard to go to the officers and tell the officers because the word gets around. Then your safety's in danger to walk the corridor, to go to your class, or to go to the chapel. And so my biggest thing has, I've kept my safety by not pushing the button, by not speaking. And so a lot of these, if you look at my record from Draper and the write-ups I had there to my record here in this new prison, in Draper, we had a place to go. Everybody who wanted to do good had a place to go that housed all the workers. I was housed in them areas for all that time, still being able to be my nickname in here, which they call me Mama T, because I look out for people. even the non-gays. I believe that everybody should be able to use the phone. I believe that everybody should not have their blue packet and you have to read it to somebody else so they could charge you rent. I believe in that. And if I am released, my fears are that this community here that I have built in Bear Forest Section 7, which there are a lot of gays and a lot of transgenders in there. I have turned that into a safe haven for others to live without fear of being bullied. And I just hope that if I am released, that somebody will step up. Well, my write-ups are because I have defended others, not because I was trying to defend myself. This last write-up, I pleaded guilty because I was in fact guilty. But there's an explanation behind it. And I gave the IDHO hearing officer my explanation, so it's there
Okay.
of why I did what I did.
Defending yourself.
I was defending others and the right for somebody to live in that section that was gay.
Okay. Thanks for telling me that. We're out of time
Okay.
now. But let me tell you, you already know you don't receive an answer here today.
Yeah.
At least 3 members of the board must agree on what comes next, whether it's a rehearing, parole, or something else. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
That could happen within a few weeks. It could be a month or more. It's not possible to give you an exact date.
Okay.
Any questions about that process?
No, I just wanted you to know, I know we're out of time, we're probably not being recorded anymore, that my support has never been stronger than it is right now. I have a letter from Suncrest to be accepted into their program, and they are recognized by APNP. I did good on my psychosexual evaluation. I have a place to live. I have a job waiting after a little bit of time of adjusting. And I put in there that my number one support system is going to be my APNP agent and APNP in itself. And I'm going to utilize that for the good of me to keep my change going if I am released.
All right. Thanks for telling me that and
Okay.
talking to me, and we'll conclude the hearing at this time.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Well, I am happy to tell you that they denied his parole. Okay. It was denied, and he will have a rehearing in 2029. And, like, frankly, can you imagine a more self-serving parole hearing? Oh, what was me? I only had the fighting right up because I was protecting others. I'm a stand-up here in the community. Even like the manipulation, you have to listen to it closely and be very familiar with these parole hearings, talking about the failed a drug test while locked up, and it was it was only failed because I didn't complete the test within this 2-hour period. And it's like, no, that's how the tests work. You have to pee in a cup, and if you don't within 2 hours, it's a fail. So when you refuse to, that probably means something. Have you ever heard a more self-serving hearing? I mean, we hear a lot, so it's not like, on the Richter scale, it's not over there. It goes up there with what we're accustomed to. But it's all about me, my feelings, my pain, my suffering. A 12-year-old child. I wanted to know what it was like to dominate a female. Wow, that makes that really adds up to your whole story over here, doesn't it? I guess you could have joined the women's swimming team. That would have been good domination for you. Oh, Mandoo, how dare you? Where is your compassion? Where is your empathy? I don't know. Maybe I can learn empathy. Maybe I can learn empathy from Mama Tara. Maybe I have a few programs I can take. It's just, I'm just stunned. It's like I don't even care, Like, what are you talking about? Twice married, going. Then one day, you know what? There's a 12-year-old delivering newspapers. So I'm gonna go look at what was done to this child. Terrence Scott Gallegos pled guilty and was immediately sentenced 15 years to life for abduction and assault of a 12-year-old newspaper carrier. The victim's mother said her daughter has bounced back, and listen to this, she did bounce back, maintaining straight A grades, interacting normally with her brothers and sisters, and continuing her newspaper route. The girl still delivers newspapers to the house where she was attacked. The house is still occupied by this man's wife and children. Because I just wanted to shut up. This was written in 2003. She was on her route last June when Gallegos called to her about getting a subscription. Come, I want a newspaper. Prosecutor says he dragged her into the home, bound her arms behind her back with an electrical cord, and blindfolded and gagged her with socks before assaulting her of a sexual nature. Gallegos pled guilty Tuesday before the Second District Judge Pamela and asked to be sentenced immediately. Pamela Hefferson asked why. Gallegos said, I'm tired of Weber County. They don't treat their inmates well. Not, I want to be sentenced quickly because what I did is horrible and justice. No, I'm tired. Defense attorney John Kane said his client has no prior offenses involving sex. I think the public ought to know that. DNA evidence clinched the case with a victim's saliva found on Gallegos' sock and semen found in her clothing. And for any of you yelling at me, Mandoo, how dare you misgender this child sexual, here's the newspaper. Inmate convicted of kidnapping. This is written just recently, a few days ago. A man convicted kidnapping and sexually assaulting a young girl delivering newspapers 120 years ago is now seeking parole. Okay, so I guess if you're going to go and attack me, then you can go and attack the newspaper. You can go and attack the prison system. You can go and attack them but you know what? I think really everyone's just tired of being attacked about this kind of stuff. Today, Gallegos tends to be known as Mama T in the cell block and has become a beacon of light for the incarcerated gay and transgender community, standing up against abuse and injustice. Isn't that ironic? It's a good day for those that need to be stood up for, because hey, at least he's still there to be able to stand up for them. And I want to point out, I couldn't, if I had a friend of mine that was transgender, I would say, sure, I'll call you whatever pronoun you want. If you want me to call you a turtle, I'll call you a turtle. But if you are not my friend, if you are someone who does this to a child and now you want me to call you by your desired, no, I'm not going there. That's just not where I'm going. Okay. I couldn't care less though what you want to identify as. I couldn't care less. I don't know what else is there to say. I don't even know if I'm gonna if I'm what I at least it's like the interesting thing is I learned to feel empathy. At least there was some, I guess, acknowledgement there. I don't think there was any empathy. I think it was maybe an understanding what empathy should be, and this idea that this is what empathy should sound like. But I don't believe there is any empathy. I don't believe you can't, and even I've spoken to people that claim to have struggled with empathy, and they say, look, it's you can learn, you can work on yourself, but I don't think you can ever truly, right? Can you ever truly teach someone empathy? Maybe they can get to a certain level of understanding, like what they should sound like, but I didn't see anything there. Anyways, I hope that this person serves out the full sentence, EOS, let's see what it was, of technically it's 2102 is the full term date, June 22nd, 2102. But another rehearing will take place in 5 years. And thank you, Sir Richard, for the information on this case. With that, I'll let you go.
I also want to maybe point out the elephant in the room, that there's some reason that Ms. Sylth is currently in a Ferguson gown and handcuffed behind her back in this hearing, which this is atypical. This is not typical. I don't know what's going on. I can only surmise unless someone wants to tell us what's going on. Meeting with your staff member, you saw another program participant and shouted at him. The other resident continued walking. You ran out of your apartment with a metal bat. You chased the other resident and hit him in the arm with the bat. Police were contacted and you were issued a citation for disturbing the peace, which carried a $109 fine. On 4/23/24, you came to staff and reported that you had broken a window in the apartment intentionally by throwing a chair at it. Your behavior meets the threshold of 53A-117 criminal mischief and third. On 4/25/24, you entered the staff office to use the phone. At 7:45 a.m., you became agitated and bent the staff office phone, breaking it. At 8 a.m., you ripped the door off your bathroom vanity and threw it from your apartment door into the community circle.
And the list goes on and on and on, and we're about to hear the full extent of it. Now, we are watching a parole revocation hearing out of the state of Connecticut, and the one thing that this inmate has going for them is, I think, the best public defender in the state of Connecticut. I mean, if you're a public defender, you don't want to see your client roll up in that kind of predicament. This is something we have never seen before.
Good morning, Ms. Sells. How are you?
Good morning.
My name is Officer Saunders. I'm a hearing examiner for the Board of Pardons and Paroles. This is a revocation hearing concerning Justice Sills 399-254. Today is Friday, August 30th, 2024. This hearing is being conducted via video at the Board of Pardons and Paroles Central Office in Osborne Correctional Institution. Please state your full name and DOC inmate number for the record.
Justice Monier Sill, 399-254.
This is a public hearing. Present this morning is P.O. Goodman, as well as your attorney.
Good morning, Public Defender Robert Famigletti of the Parole Revocation Unit. Hello, Justice.
Hello, Rob.
Good morning, Justice. Kimberly Goodman for Parole and Community Services Mental Health Unit.
Thank you.
This is a revocation hearing to determine whether you have violated the conditions of your release. I will review and make findings of fact as to each of the charges against you. The state, not you, has the responsibility to prove the allegations by a preponderance of evidence. That is, the better or weightier evidence must establish that, more probable than not, the allegation is true. P.O. Goodman, you're not muted.
Oh, my apologies. Sorry.
If I do not find that there is a preponderance of evidence to support a violation of one or more of the conditions of your parole, I will reinstate your parole, which means releasing you and placing you back on parole supervision. If I find that you have violated one or more of the conditions of your parole, I will consider whether or not your parole should be revoked. If I recommend revocation, I will make a recommendation as to an appropriate sanction. My recommendation will be given to a panel for a final decision. If the panel wishes to impose a sanction beyond my recommendation, a supplemental hearing will be provided to justify additional confinement. The testimony at today's hearing will be taken under oath. P.O. Goodman, in this, so I'm going to actually ask that your attorney raise your right hand for her? I mean,
Can you, are your both of your hands down, Miss? Okay, so I can't do it,
You did
for her,
right,
but you can at least say that you. Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna just place you under oath. Okay, so I was gonna make this, say yes at the end as long as you're in agreement.
Okay.
Do you solemnly swear or solemnly and sincerely affirm, as the case may be, that the evidence you shall give concerning this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or upon penalty of perjury?
I do.
Yes. Thank you. First, I will read you your rights. Then we will review the parole violation charges that the state your parole officer is bringing against you. Then I will review and identify exhibits filed for the record. Your attorney will have an opportunity to present all relevant testimony and conduct cross-examination. After considering all the evidence presented, I will announce my findings. If I find that you have violated one or more of the conditions of your parole, your attorney will have an opportunity to speak to your background and history. Do you have any questions about the purpose or procedure before we begin?
No.
Thank you. You have important rights at this hearing, which I now will review with you. You have the right to be represented by an attorney. You have the right to receive written notice of charges of violation. You have the right to review the evidence against you before this hearing. You have a right to submit evidence in support of your case. At this hearing, you have the right to call and examine voluntary witnesses and to cross-examine adverse witnesses. Do you understand these rights?
Yes.
Thank you.
Can I just ask, Justice, are you okay? You look like you're in a lot of pain.
Oh, I'm handcuffed by the back from this chair. I could move up a little bit if people are coming. I'm not in a lot of pain. I'm just expressing face.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure you're all right.
We now review the charges of the state your parole officer is bringing against you and the information underlying each charge. Peel Goodman?
Yes, ma'am. Charge number 1, release direction. Under program participation, you were placed in a mental health Connecticut Parkview supportive housing program. Upon admission, you were issued a handbook outlining the program's rules and regulations. You signed acknowledgement forms agreeing to abide by said rules and regulations. As a result of your willful violation of these rules and ongoing, escalating, and dangerous behavior, you were unsuccessfully discharged from the Mental Health Connecticut Parkview program, which was funded by DEMIS on April 25th, 2024. Charge 2, obey all laws. Since your admission, obedience to the law, since your admission to Parkview Supportive Housing Program, you have caused significant damage to your assigned apartment. Damage includes numerous holes in the walls, drawings and writing on the walls, unsanitary conditions, and possessing contraband. Your behavior meets the threshold for 53A-11-6 criminal mischief in the second degree. On 4/20/24, you entered the staff office at Parkview Housing Program for your medication. You proceeded to enter the back office and take program supplies. When redirected to put the items back, you punched the wall, then proceeded to smash a flower pot on your way out of the office. Your behavior meets the threshold for 53A-11-7 criminal mischief in the third. On 4/22/24, while meeting with your staff member, you saw another program participant and shouted at him. The other resident continued walking. You ran out of your apartment with a metal bat. You chased the other resident and hit him in the arm with the bat. Police were contacted and you were issued a citation for disturbing the peace, which carried a $109 fine. On 4/23/24, you came to staff and reported that you had broken a window in the apartment intentionally by throwing a chair at it. Your behavior meets the threshold of 53A-117 criminal mischief in third. On 4/25/24, you entered the staff office to use the phone. At 7:45 a.m., you became agitated and bent the staff office phone, breaking it. At 8 a.m., you ripped the door off your bathroom vanity and threw it from your apartment door into the community circle. At 9:45, you were observed by staff kicking in your apartment door. You kicked it so hard you cracked the frame, and the door was no longer able to close. At 10:45 a.m., you flipped the community circle picnic table when leaving the property, causing it to be damaged. At 2:45 p.m., you were observed throwing a bag into the community circle. It was filled with glass and garbage. You were observed spreading the glass and garbage in the parking lot. These behaviors meet the threshold of 53A-117 criminal mischief in the third. D, drugs. On 3/18/24, you tested positive for cocaine on an oral swab. The swab was sent to Premier Biotech Labs for confirmation, and the positive result was confirmed. As a result, you are in violation of release direction, obey all laws, drugs.
The state has filed the following exhibits, starting with Exhibit A.
I'm sorry, one moment, please. Exhibit A, I don't actually know. Oh, yep. Exhibit A, signed parole conditions. Is Exhibit B, remand to actual custody order. Exhibit C, notice of parole violation, parolee rights. Exhibit D, parole violation report. Exhibit E, DEMIS critical incident submission form 4/22/24. Exhibit F, DEMIS critical incident submission form 4/25/24. Exhibit G, mental health Connecticut discharge letter, behaviors of concern list. Exhibit H, mental health Connecticut residential services handbook and signed acknowledgements. Exhibit I, photos of property damage on 4/25/24. Exhibit J, photos of apartment damage and disarray since admission. Exhibit K, positive drug screen and misconduct. Exhibit L, MHC video footage 4/22 incident located on the X drive. Exhibit M, criminal mischief second and third descriptions, and Exhibit N, previous revocation summaries and hearing dispositions.
In June 2024, the state filed an addendum to Exhibit D, which stated on June 11th, 2024, Ms. Silk was served a warrant and arraigned on charges of breach of peace second and criminal mischief first for her behaviors that occurred on April 25th, 2024. At such time, probable cause was established. The state submitted additional evidence that was not available at the time of the preliminary summary. At the time of the preliminary summary was completed. Addendum evidence consists of Exhibit A, authorized arrest warrant, Exhibit B, continuance of minimus, and Exhibit C, judicial branch pending case detail. In August 2024, the state filed an additional addendum to Exhibit D, which states on August 6, 2024, Ms. Silk was found guilty of breach of peace second and sentenced to 90 days jail, and the charge of criminal mischief first was nollied. Counsel, did you receive the notice of parole violation report, and the other documents that were marked for identification purposes?
Yes, I have.
Okay. And defense has filed Exhibit 1, parole accomplishments and future plans for parole reinstatement, and Exhibit 2, letter of support. Today, we have no witnesses, and at this time, the state will have an opportunity to present evidence and speak to any of the evidence submitted. Feel Goodman?
I, with all due respect, I think the charges speak for themselves. I would much rather like to save my commentary for history and background.
At this time, the state will, or the defense, it is now the defense opportunity to present evidence to speak to any of the evidence submitted.
Yes, I have no comment regarding the preponderance charge for charge 3, the preponderance standard. As to charge 1, the allegations are conclusory, just says rules violations, discharge from housing for rule violations, essentially. I just think that that's not specific enough. So I don't believe it meets the preponderance standard. As to charge 2, the only charge that she pled guilty to was the breach of peace, and the second degree received 90 days, and all the other charges were unsubstantiated. No pleas resulted. Thank you.
Charge 1, program participation. I make a finding based on state's exhibits A, D, E, F, G, H, and L. On charge 2, obedience to the law, a no finding was made on parts 1 and 3 when the preliminary summary was completed on May 14th, 2024. Therefore, these charges will not be considered at today's hearing. On May 14th, 2024, a no finding was made on part 5 when the preliminary summary was completed. However, the state submitted additional evidence that was not available at the time the preliminary summary was completed. Given the additional evidence, I make a finding on parts 2, 4, and 5 based on Ms. Silk's conviction, as well as state's exhibits A, D, and F, as well as addendum exhibits A through C. On charge 3, drugs, I make a finding based on state's exhibits A, D, and K. That concludes the fact-finding portion of this hearing. Before I make my recommendation, your attorney will have an opportunity to speak to your background and history. First, we're going to start with Theo Goodman. Would you like to make a statement regarding Ms. Silk's background and history at this time?
I would. Thank you so much. We've been working with Ms. Silk since 2017. We have attempted to place her in several community program options, and those have been unsuccessful. The last 2 options were the Parkview program, which is funded and paid for by Demas. And in order to get Ms. Silk into that program, on both occasions, we had to take her case up to the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services Commissioner's office in order to find appropriate funding and housing to keep the community safe and to keep justice safe as well. Because of her ongoing and continued behavior, she has made it almost next to impossible to place her in any DOC funded programming, which is why we have to have specialized programming. And this specialized programming takes quite a while to get. This is her 5th violation. She has received sanctions anywhere between 6 and 9 months, and we have utilized in the field that time to secure appropriate placements for her. However, those placements don't really seem to be to Miss Silt's liking, and subsequently she sabotages those placements by acting out in the ways that are described in this violation report and in the ways that are described in the previous revocation summaries. We've attempted to place her in a halfway house where she committed an arson by burning things in the trash can. She was involved in another halfway house in a sexual assault, which was a Priya incident. She's been arrested multiple times for indecent exposure, for interfering with an officer, assaulting an officer, and grabbing his taser, attempting to grab his taser, excuse me. And her behaviors continue to escalate. You saw in the video that she actually went after someone with a baseball bat when they weren't responding in the way she wanted them to respond. I see that I did receive her report for her parole accomplishments, and it said that she had gone to Stonington through 3 days. Well, Stonington is not a 3-day program, and in 3 days you're not going to address an addiction to cocaine. And as a matter of fact, I quoted in my report that the only thing she got out of that program was a smoking habit. So she didn't successfully complete that program. So it's essentially a bit misleading, that report. It indicates that she's amenable to any treatment, amenable to any placements, but it hasn't mattered where we've put her. She doesn't actively engage in treatment. At times, she's refused to take medications. We do everything in our power to actually help her move on, and get to where she wants to go. But she does things intentionally, as she admitted to myself and Officer Montoya, to get out of situations that she doesn't want to be in. I get that it's not easy to be on supervision and that you don't want to be supervised, but in order to keep the community safe and to keep justice safe, there's certain steps that we have to take, and we can't keep somebody out in the community who would cause that kind of damage and destruction to their own apartment. And quite frankly, an apartment that she wasn't paying for. If you were to revoke and reparole her, we would need quite a bit of time in order to secure a more appropriate setting, because halfway house placements haven't worked. Treatment programs haven't worked. She was at Blue Hills. That didn't go well when she wasn't getting her way. She threatened not to eat. There's just a plethora of sorry, I got tongue tied for a second. It's just there's a lot of moving parts that we have to address in order to keep the community safe from her, and to keep her safe from herself.
Counsel, do you wish to make a statement regarding Ms. Silt's background and history at this time?
Yes, I do. My client is 38 years of age. She's divorced. She reportedly attended Middlesex Community College online studying psychology, and she's about 2 courses shy of earning her associate's degree. For her disability, she receives Social Security. She has a history of psychiatric hospitalizations. While placed, she was sent many visits to the hospital for ideation, and she was released without care. She was placed in the past in female housing and mixed housing, and she states that that's more successful for her. She, unfortunately, when she's placed at DOC, she has to be segregated and is placed with males. Many males approach her, and that makes it difficult for her. She's been incarcerated now for over 4 months for the discharge for housing rule violation, damaging property for which she served 90 days, and 1 positive cocaine urine within a supervisory period of 10 months. She received no graduated interventions and sanctions, and they are recommending that her parole be revoked and reviewed annually. I don't believe that's appropriate. I think it's draconian. She is disabled. She does carry. We are only talking about a period on the 20th of April, 22nd of April, 23rd of April, 25th of April. Those are the dates, and one positive urine from March 18th. She has been with parole on this period of supervision since June 23rd of 2023. Like I said, 10 months, just those isolated incidents. She has a history, as I said, hospitalizations. She was on the job waiting list at Osborne Correctional. She wishes to return to Middlesex Community College to study psychology. She's also interested in learning Spanish. She cannot work due to her disability. Justice, where do you wish, or does it not matter? You just want an appropriate placement. Does it matter where you're placed, or you're just seeking an appropriate placement?
I can't speak unto what I think would be appropriate because like nothing's worked so far.
Okay.
I feel like if I was
Is there any particular area, or does that not matter?
for area, I prefer New Haven, Bridgeport, or Danbury.
But you do understand that it may be difficult to place you.
Why?
Okay, so you disagree with that.
No,
Okay.
it's not that I disagree. I just understand why.
Well, well, there's been representations made that it's difficult to place you. Are those true or not?
Those are true. Although DOC has never tried to place me as a female. I realize that their current rules don't allow them to.
Okay.
But I feel like I'm not as bad of a mental health issue as like it may have to be, and I feel like I'm much more. I don't know. I'm here right now in this DOC setting, and it's almost impossible for them to place me because men approach me or men call me it, and it's not like a livable scenario. They put me in mental health like for treatment setting, and I'm with people that are depraved, people that aren't lucid ever, people that aren't cogent ever. I just feel like I've been deprived of being like in the real world almost, and as like an LGBTQ person in the real world, I have a community, whereas like I've been deprived of that, and I don't.
You do realize that when you're placed and you're on parole, there are restrictions, correct?
I do
And you
realize
have to
that,
abide, and you have to abide by those rules, correct?
Yes,
And you understand that where you're placed, you can't damage property, correct?
Yes, I do. I wasn't really in control myself at the time. That particular placement, it started off very good. It had lots of staff I could relate to and got along with, and lots of they pride themselves in being a community setting, and it started off good. And then at some point, towards the second time I was released, I'd say like 85% of the people smoke crack. Now I've been to psychiatric diagnosis. I've been psychiatrically labeled for well over 20 years.
Right.
Part of that is having boundary issues.
I understand that.
They put all the boundary issues in place.
Justice, I'm trying to cut to the chase. Do you understand, having been incarcerated for 4 months now, that breaking things is not a solution?
Yes.
We also have a letter of support from Ashley, one of Justice's friends, and that was submitted as an exhibit. Have you had a chance to review that?
Yes.
Hearing examiner Saunders?
I haven't had a chance to review that. I didn't receive that. The only thing I received was a review report from the social worker.
Okay.
I just want to put that on the record.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want a moment to review it?
I don't have it.
I guess I can send
I
it.
don't necessarily know if I have to send a copy of the exhibits to there's no duty to send a copy of the exhibits to the parole officer. I don't believe we sent you a copy of our list of accomplishments, did we?
Yes, I did receive that. And
Yeah.
I addressed that because of one of the accomplishments that was listed was a participation in Stonington for 3 days.
Okay.
And I said earlier that was misleading.
Okay. So I think generally what our argument is that although my client has been difficult to place, and although my client has contributed, and I think she would agree that she has contributed to that difficulty to place her because of her conduct here, in her prior conduct. She's received no graduated interventions and sanctions, and these are isolated incidents over a course of 10 months of parole for this period. She's been incarcerated for 4 months. I don't believe it's in the interest of justice to essentially sentence an individual who received a breach of peace in 90 days, 1 cocaine urine, and was discharged for rules violations to jail indefinitely. And I also don't believe that not having an appropriate place to place her, part of which is due to her orientation, is appropriate. She has admitted her conduct. Even if we admit all of the conduct, if everything in the allegations is true, I don't believe a full revocation of her parole is warranted in this case. I don't think these violations are so serious enough to warrant incarceration of that period of time. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Phil Goodman, would you like to say anything else regarding Ms. Sue's background and history at
Yeah,
this time?
just really quickly, I think, recent past behavior can be indicative of future behavior, and all the violations that she's had, all 5 of them, you have to take them in their totality. I understand this is just 1 violation, but there are 4 more. This recommendation, while I think, the attorney used the word draconian may have been making that recommendation at the 1st violation, not the 5th. I also want to maybe point out the elephant in the room, that there's some reason that Ms. Sylth is currently in a Ferguson gown and handcuffed behind her back in this hearing, which this is atypical. This is not typical. I don't know what's going on. I can only surmise unless someone wants to tell us what's going on. I just think that looking at the totality, her behaviors are progressive, they're ongoing, they're continuing, and regardless of the amount of time she's received as a sanction, whether it's 6 months or 9 months or a year, or she's previously been convicted of other charges and in other violations, this behavior continues to happen. And it's appropriate to take responsibility in the moment when you're in this hearing, but it's inappropriate when you're in the community committing those crimes. And let's face it, that the criminal mischief charge may have been nollied, but she caused $2,200 worth of damage, all because she didn't want to be there. And she flat out told us in the violation report, I wrote it, it was a quote. I said, well, I guess you got what you wanted, because she didn't want to be in Torrington. And she smiled and she said, yep, I did.
Can I respond?
May I speak?
Well, one moment.
Please.
I just want to respond briefly, and then certainly you can speak. What she appears to be in, as far as her garb, or whether or not she's in some sort of a gown, or that's not evidence in this case. So there's no need to address that, one. Second off, even if we assume all of the charges, she's charged with damaging property and a breach of peace. Okay, the breach of peace is a misdemeanor for which she received 90 days. I don't think we should jump where her prior sanctions have been 6 months and 9 months. She received 90 days here. Even if she did damage property, we're talking at about a misdemeanor level of value for damage to property at $2,200 here. So we should not be treating this or even thinking of completely revoking her parole. Thank you.
I just want to put on the record, she was charged with a felony. It was nollied, but just because it was nollied doesn't mean the behavior didn't happen.
Even if it happened.
Thank you.
Even if it happened. $2,200 of damage does not require or call for a revocation of her probation, of her parole. Excuse me. Thank you. Miss, do you wish to be heard now?
I wanted to speak to the previous revocations. The first time I was put into Renaissance East, it was very clear that I was going to be very different from everyone there. One night I was approached 4 different times for sex in my room. The staff allowed that to happen. But then what happened is I burned white sage incense in a dollar bill in a trash can, or not a trash can, a coffee cup, and lots of other clients there were burning incense. But because they knew that I was having sex and not really hiding it, they revoked me. The second time, there were not openly, but 3 gay people in the half house, and they were my friends. And I jokingly went to act like I was going to fillet one of them, but I was well over 6, maybe even 12 inches away from the entire time. And a third party happened to see it, reported it, and I was recorded. I requested him as a witness so that he could speak to the fact that he didn't care, and he was my friend 10 seconds later, or 10 seconds during the entire incident, and that wasn't heard. I feel like if I was in the community, not a DEMA setting or DOC, I feel like if I was in a DOC setting and a female setting, I would do just fine. I wouldn't be pressured for sex. I wouldn't be in these ridiculous circumstances where I'm pressed to have sex. And I feel like if I wasn't treated like an invalid, or like in Parkview, I felt like I was almost forced to smoke crack. I have very little boundary issues, and people would come to my apartment and say, buy crack, buy crack, buy crack, buy crack. And I didn't want to go down that road where I felt like I had 7 months left to live and be healthy. I'm a healthy individual. I just have boundary issues, and I wasn't allowed to have another person in the apartment to ward off these people for me. I was forced to be part of a community I didn't want to be part of. I realize I'm responsible for the damage, and that's not the way to go about things. But I was stressed, and I don't know. I feel like it come 2.5 years, if I am, God forbid, sentenced to my entire parole hearing, I'll do just fine in the community when I'm actually in the community. But I haven't seen anything even close to it in a really long time.
Thank you.
Thank
Peel
you.
Goodman, anything further?
Just to say that while she was in the community, the last 2 times she's had her own apartment.
And Peel Goodman, I do want to say, I look back at the email chain. You are on the email for the updated list of exhibits for the letter of support. It was sent yesterday around 2:00.
Okay,
So-
let me just double check. Was it with the other exhibit?
No, it was sent separately. We sent a second batch out. Because what happens is my social worker will send in her exhibit, I will review it, will be sent. And then later in the day, I remembered that I had the letter from the friend, and I gave it to our secretarial staff to amend our exhibit. So there's exhibit 1 and exhibit 2 were sent, perhaps after the 2:00 hour.
I did get the first one around 1:22, and this just said I sent an updated list. So maybe I missed.
You want to review it now? It's about a
Yeah,
paragraph.
I'm opening it
Okay.
now.
Okay.
Thank you. Hold on.
So anything further before?
Nothing further from me unless there's comments made as a result of the letter. I just reserve the right to respond.
Oh yeah, here it is. Yeah, I see it now. Okay, I have read the letter. The only question I would have is I don't understand what is being referred to regarding being forced to take medication. She was on no forced medications.
No, I understand. I don't believe she was on forced medications either, so.
So that would be my only.
We're not, we don't support that position.
And I also want to say that the Parkview program isn't DEMIS housing. It's run by the mental health. Sorry, I don't know the exact terminology. 1 second for it.
Mental CT.
Yes, yep. It's run by them and it's funded by DEMIS, but it's not DEMIS housing. It's independent living. And she was more than welcome to have guests and company. They just weren't allowed to sleep there.
No, I wasn't allowed to.
I think we're
Yeah, I
going
agree.
off target now.
I agree. Yes.
Okay,
thank
I
you.
don't think that necessarily requires a response. I don't believe that, unless I'm wrong, hearing examiner
Regarding the
Saunders.
charges.
Yeah. Okay,
Yep,
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, nothing further?
Nothing from the defense.
I recommend revoke and reparole on February 25th, 2025, which is an approximate 10-month sanction. This is Ms. Thill's 5th parole violation. While on supervision, she received 1 misconduct for testing positive for cocaine and accrued an additional conviction and was unsuccessfully discharged from her programming due to her behaviors. I recommend the following conditions: no consumption of alcohol, no contact with victims LM and JM, halfway house placement, and mental health treatment. My findings and recommendations will be forwarded to the board. You will receive official written decision from the board, and your board review is scheduled on September 12th, 2024. The board may lessen my recommended sanction, let my recommended sanction stand, or impose a sanction longer than what I have recommended. If the board decides to impose a sanction longer than what I have recommended, then a supplemental hearing would be held. Before the hearing, the board will provide you with written notice documenting the specific reasons why they might want to exceed my recommendation. During the supplemental hearing, you will have an opportunity to respond to those specific reasons while in front of the panel of the board. This concludes the revocation hearing.
Okay, so Justice, give me a call on September 13th, and I will let you know what the board decided. The recommendation is a 10-month sanction, which is 1 month longer than your prior longest sanction. Okay?
I have the main part of my disability is temporal. Like I'm not gonna remember like the date of this like 3 seconds later. Like 3 seconds. Is there any way you can mail me that date? Or
They will be mailing you a copy of the results once the board meets on the 12th.
Thank you.
This is not a
Officer
final decision.
Officer Saunders, you said February 25th?
February 12th.
Oh,
I'm
12th.
sorry. So February 25th, 2025. Yes. And
Thank
then
you.
September 12th is the board review.
Understood. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Famigletti.
You're welcome.
Have a
Just
great
give me
day.
a
Bye,
call if you have-
Justice.
Justice, give me a call if you have any questions.
Okay.
Justice, be well, okay?
I'm trying.
All right. We'll see you soon.
Mhm.
Bye-bye.
Hey, they're done.
Okay, so let's unpack this, and I'll do the best that I can because there's almost no information on this inmate, and we believe that it's because the inmate has an alias, another name that for whatever reason the DOC is not listing. Typically, they list all of the aliases, but in this case, it's not there. Now, it was recommended as a 10-month sanction, which would be, I think, another from this date, like 5 months to serve. So, hey, maybe it's something. At least they didn't say, sure, just go out there and have fun. Let's see if history won't repeat itself. Now, the board will review it. We do have access to those reviews. If there's a change in the sanction, I'll pin it in the comment section. Very rare that there will be any change, but if there is, just check the comment section. It will be pinned. Otherwise, this is just insane. I mean, let's remember the big elephant in the room that you roll up, cuffed, as what the attorney calls a it's just a gown. What's the, I don't, who cares what my client's in? A gown. It's a nice gown. And they don't ask about it. They don't ask about it. There was like a hot mic at the beginning, I think, talking about write-ups or something, but I couldn't make it out. And why are you cuffed? How are you even having a revocation hearing? Like, it doesn't even make sense. What did you think the result's going to be? I mean, clearly this person should not be out and about. Clearly. And do you think something's going to change? Remember, they've been locked up for like 5 months already at this point. Give or take. I don't know. And they still show up in cuffs? It's you know, it's interesting. The attorney's trying to make these points. Well, it's my client doesn't want to be in DOC with males, wants to be with females, and they don't. And you know, there are halfway houses that are co-ed, and then as the Richard research, so we know that exists. And then, but on top of it, the parole officer makes a really good point and says, this inmate has had an apartment, a solo furnished apartment given, and twice violated having their own apartment. It's like what I'm seeing here is the system that is bending over backwards in every which way to try to give to this person to succeed. And yet this person violates over and over and over and over and over. And not just in any ways. We're talking about chasing people with bats and trying to take tasers from police and lighting fires in your apartment and throwing. I mean, you're the problem. Look at yourself in the mirror and say, stop blaming other people. And the worst is having others that are like just trying to make excuses. You know, I get the attorney has to do his job, and and if there's anyone out of Connecticut in this whole scenario that I want to have a beer with, it's that attorney. I have a lot of respect for his creativity, and he just, how can you, my client only did 2 little things wrong? Oh, it's just theft. Come on, what's the big deal? You're gonna lock them up for 10 months? It wasn't even a felony in the PO. You know, it's interesting. In Connecticut, the parole officers, they're not just like parole officers that have the power to arrest and to carry a weapon but they also have to be able to debate at the level of an attorney in an adversarial proceeding. That's like, we have seen this a lot, and it's impressive. And I don't think they get paid it. I mean, it's hey, if you want a stimulating job that's always changing and challenging, be a PO officer in Connecticut. Also, you might want to be a masochist. Is that the right word? If you take that role, but it's, and then still wanting more. No. See, it's still the problem. The problem lies in the system. See, DOC's still not housing me with women. If they would just house me with women, everything would be okay. It's like, what? You literally got your own apartment. I mean, think about that. Imagine getting arrested, spending time in prison, and because of whatever reason, the DOC decides, you know what, we are going to take taxpayer money. We're going to skip, there are plenty of people that can use Section 8, the mothers with children that are having hard time, that are working hard, that are doing everything right, but they simply can't afford housing because who can? And no, you're going to skip the line. They're going to wait. We're going to give it to this inmate because they don't want to be housed like everyone else. Think about that. Just think about that. How many more people that would not have lit their apartment on fire, that would have appreciated it and treasured it and maybe have stayed in it for till the end of time, like it was their own home? No. It's like when the loonies run the asylum, this is the result. And I don't know what the answer is, frankly. I mean, do you keep someone locked up forever? Like, what is the answer? I don't know. But the idea that you can even only have that you show up in cuffs something we have never seen at a revocation hearing. Actually, we saw a gang member show up in cuffs, but the cuffs were not behind his back, and he wasn't in this gown. So we did see that once, but that was because they assigned him a thing as a gang member, so he was classified different type of thing, not because he was acting out. I think it was just a classification thing. That was an interesting one. He had a great attorney. Man, the attorney actually owned the parole officer. But you know, how can you expect a parole officer? He had a paid attorney. It wasn't a public defender. But the yeah, there's nothing. We don't have anything. There's no records really. There's no crimes on in the jacket, and that's probably because of the alias name or a name change or something. I don't really know. Well, all we have here is a 2015 breach of peace, a 2019 interference with an officer, which I think was a taser thing, the 611 arrest, 6/11/2024, which is a breach of peace, second degree. There's also it's just like 425/24, something else. But there you go. There you have it. You can't make it up. I know that I vented a little bit. I don't know what the answer is, but clearly this isn't working, and I don't know what could, but with that, I'll let you go.
I also want to maybe point out the elephant in the room, that there's some reason that Ms. Sylth is currently in a Ferguson gown and handcuffed behind her back in this hearing, which this is atypical. This is not typical. I don't know what's going on. I can only surmise unless someone wants to tell us what's going on.
We are about to watch the parole hearing of Savannah Shepard. Now, this was a big news story back in 2005 when Savannah brutally crippled toddler. And this toddler will never be able to walk or talk again. And what makes this story particularly interesting is what Savannah did while locked up in prison. Savannah's cellie reported that she was forced to become Savannah's girlfriend, forced to perform over 100 different sexual acts on Savannah. And this just happened recently. Now Savannah is coming up for a parole hearing, and it's going to be interesting to see what Savannah reacts and how the board reacts, because the 15 years is coming up, and I'll unpack it with the details at the end.
Excuse me, officer.
Oh, Mr. G.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
We are going to need your assistance in just a moment. If you could stay close by.
Okay.
Just for to be able to hang up and then reconnect on the equipment in just a moment. But the officer is going to start the proceedings first.
Okay. You want me to hang up?
Not yet, but in just a moment, we will need your help.
Okay.
Okay.
Watch the rest of it.
Yeah.
Say hi. We are.
Good afternoon, Mr. Shepherd.
Hello.
My name is Parole. Good afternoon. My name is Parole Officer Logan, and today is Friday, June 28th, 2024. This is a hearing of the Connecticut Board of Pardons and Paroles. Present this afternoon are Chairperson Turner and Board members Cole and Board member Rodriguez. Mr. Shepherd, please state your name and number for the record.
Savannah Shepherd, 382222.
This hearing is being conducted because the board has received This hearing is being conducted because the board has received information regarding past conduct, which may require participation in a behavioral management program for problem sexual behavior. Mr. Shepherd, this is your opportunity to offer testimony regarding specific information and conduct. Your testimony will be taken off the record.
Okay. I have a state.
Yes, before we begin, could the CO please close the door?
Okay, well, you wanted me here, but.
Wait. We have to do the technology piece.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to make a motion to go into executive session for the purposes of talking about confidential inmate information. Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Officer, if you could hang up this call now, I will send you a new private invite in just a moment, and you can accept that new call so the board can speak to him.
Okay, so I'll hang up off of this session and you're gonna rejoin.
Yep, so wait for the new prompt to appear on your screen. You'll see the call come through and the word accept.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
I'm gonna stay. I stay. You gotta leave. Okay, well, I don't want to stay. It's not my idea.
I know.
Listen,
No,
So
I know.
what they're doing is
They're
something, so they're
talking
going
about-
off, right,
Yeah,
so
they're
they're going
talking
off
about-
camera and then they're gonna bring you back on.
Yeah, and then after I can have the privacy. Yeah.
So what is it saying? Says you're sharing, we'll see a placeholder if you leave.
Wow.
Connecting.
There we go.
Thank you.
Everybody on, good to go, and everything's working.
Yes, thank you for your help, officer.
There you go.
We're now back on the record. With me is Chairperson Turner and Board member Cole and Rodriguez, and also staff psychologist, Dr. Walker. Has the board made a decision?
So, Mr. Shepherd, after reviewing your testimony and all the information available, the board has decided to require a sexual behavior evaluation prior to your parole hearing. At the time of your parole hearing, the board may also decide to stipulate you to treatment as a condition of your release. You may also be assigned to the special management unit for supervision. This concludes the jurisprudence hearing for, there's no
Motion to.
Okay, so I'm going to make a motion that we are, in fact, requiring the evaluation to
Yes,
take
ma'am.
place.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so this concludes.
This concludes the jurisprudence hearing for Savannah Shepherd, inmate number 382222. You're all set, Mr. Shepherd, and I just want to let you know.
Okay,
I just want to let you know, parole hearing will not be conducted until you have the evaluation by the connection, okay?
okay.
That needs to occur first, and then you'll be scheduled for a hearing, okay?
How do I get that done?
I will send this is Dr. Walker speaking. I'll send the referral to the connection 5 minutes from now, and they will get you on the schedule for their next trip to York.
So
Okay.
your 85% date is in the middle of March, and the board typically sees people for discretionary parole 6 months out. So we wouldn't be seeing you till September anyway.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Concludes the York hearing.
Oh, it's 2:04.
It's 12:04 p.m.
All set, thank you.
All right, thank
As you
you.
revise the script, could you add the motion to vote that's not on there?
Okay, so they decided to take things off the record, and I suppose because of the idea that Savannah was literally a predator while locked up after I mean, it's hard to imagine that Savannah was a paramedic. Savannah seemed to be, doing quite fine, really, and then everything just seemed to snap. I mean, here is Savannah's full term date is 7/11/2027. Now, Savannah's going to finish this program, which is, of course, going to solve all the problems, right? And make Savannah ready to get re-entered into society. And have another parole hearing in September, which we will cover. And so make sure you're subscribed and put the notification bell, maybe set it in your calendar if you want to see what the follow-up hearing looks like and how they interview someone who does this to their own toddler and then does this to their own cellie. I'm going to read from the reports what the judge really admonished Savannah, and I'm going to read it verbatim. So, YouTube gods, please don't smother me, is all I can say. Gotta be careful on YouTube. So, this was written in 2013. 15 years in prison for mom who shook baby. In a case the judge called one of the most egregious she ever heard, a Bristol woman was sentenced to 15 years in prison Wednesday for shaking her baby so violently that the baby nearly died. The sentence of Savannah Shepherd, 25, is to be followed by 5 years of special parole. She is prohibited from ever having contact with the girl, now 3 years old. She is also banned from being with her young child. Both children are in foster care. Shepherd previously pled guilty to first-degree assault and risk of injury to a minor in Superior Court. She was also accused of having a weapon in jail. The 3-year-old needs a feeding tube to eat and is bedridden. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Judge Hillary Strackbean said she has medicine pump installed in her spine. She is legally blind and she can't hear. And meanwhile, I have to be nervous on how I talk about this parole hearing, and that makes me sick. No one spoke for the little girl, although 2 Bristol detectives watched the sentencing. No one spoke for Savannah Shepherd either. She didn't say she's sorry. Asked if she wanted to make a statement, she said, "No, I don't, Your Honor." She was arrested in March 2011. At the time, a state prosecutor said the baby will probably never walk. No kidding. Shepherd, who was part-time ambulance worker, had no prior arrest, a bail commissioner said. Police said the baby, who was 8 weeks old at the time of September 13, 2010 incident, appeared to have been shaken. In the warrant for Shepherd's arrest, doctors who specialize in child abuse said the baby will never be capable of walking or speaking due to the abusive head trauma she suffered. Shepherd's mother, Sandra, told police she believes her daughter lost her patience and injured her baby by shaking her. And the idea that she was an EMT. I believe she is capable. I believe she is capable of such an act as violently shaking her baby because Savannah is high strung. She has no patience and has no coping skills. That's what her mother says. Belcher said she gets agitated easily. Shepard told police that she shook her baby August 27th, September 3rd, after the baby became limp and made odd breathing noises, but she said neither shake was violent. Then we go to the next crime. Oh my gosh. Oh my God, look at this. I didn't realize this. She became pregnant again? Yes. Wait. March 10th, 2011. Bristol baby was hospitalized for drug withdrawal report. A Bristol baby, police was shaken violently. My mother was also addicted to drugs according to reports. The baby was hooked on narcotics, who will likely never walk again. Oh wow. A 23-year-old Bristol woman who works as an EMT admitted to shaking her daughter. The press report said she did it because her baby was having trouble breathing. The State Department of Children and Family told the press Shepard, who was pregnant again, was using narcotics during her first pregnancy. This is a child who will never have anything close to approaching motor or cognitive function. The hope is that someday she will be able to sit up in a wheelchair. So Savannah was sentenced in 2011. And then in 2016, this came out. And again, I'm going to read it. I'm reading. Niantic Correctional Facility inmate sentenced additional 18 months for stabbing, sexually assaulting cellmate. Victim reported that Shepard had forced her to become her girlfriend and made her sign a certificate of death. That's real charming. Real charming. A Bristol woman who was serving a 15-year sentence at the Janet York Correctional Institute was sentenced to an additional 18 months. Although none of the time is adding up because the sentence took place in 2011, 15 years. Okay, it is. Otherwise, it would be 2026. So the full term date is 2027. Okay. The math is adding up. Can you imagine that this is all the time you get for this stuff? Savannah Shepard, 29, pleaded guilty to unlawful restraint stemming from charges sexually assaulting cellmate. To think that this person is going to be out in the public is insane. According to the day, the victim reported that Shepard had forced her to be her girlfriend. The victim further reported that Shepard had forced her to perform an estimated 100 sexual acts since they became cellmates in January, the day reported. The victim also revealed a certificate of death Shepard forced her to sign that indicated she would die if she broke up with Shepard. Patch previously reported that Shepard, a 2005 Berlin high school graduate, being charged with injuring her infant daughter by shaking a child in September 2010. An extensive investigation led to Shepard's arrest in March 2011. Shepard was an EMT with Plymouth Volunteer Ambulance Court report. And there we go. Thank you, Richard, for sharing this information. You might say you might not believe it if you didn't see it. It is insane. The sentences that are dished out, and then, how, of course, I have to do this parole hearing, just worrying about how I do it because I don't want to offend anyone, of course. And
Sorry, and I just realized in your sex offender assessment that you do identify as female, correct?
we are in the state of Utah. Who would have thought? Now, I'd be pretty scared if I was this parole board interviewer because he has on his conviction threatening to cut off a judge's head. Not just any judge, but it was actually a judge and a member on the board of paroles. So he's got a record that dates back over a decade, and this sexual offense is just one of the many crimes in his jacket. I'll unpack it with those details at the end.
Can you tell me what led to your offense? That
Um,
one specifically?
That one specifically, I was having inappropriate conversations with a minor.
Okay. What led to the inappropriate conversations?
I don't know. I was reached out to and then I just proceeded with it.
Okay. Has anything like this happened before?
No.
Okay. So tell me what you learned in sex offender programming that's going to help so that something like that doesn't happen in the future.
Well, I've gained a lot of positive tools,
Okay.
such as positive coping skills and coping strategies.
Can you give me some examples?
The coping skills as far as like managing anxiety, fear, giving reflectively listen, giving feedback, and managing anger.
Okay.
That was a biggie.
Okay.
I also applied these principles to not only that crime, but to the crimes that I am here for.
And that's what I wanted to ask too, specifically when it comes to the aggravated stuff, the assaults. Tell me what you've learned while you've been here that's going to help you manage that so these don't happen either.
Well, I've developed a lot of core beliefs about maintaining my dignity and respect towards others and creating boundaries, appropriate boundaries, not only to that offense, but to the other one as well. And I mean, I think that's a huge part because I had the lack of boundaries and the lack of respect.
Okay. Where do you think the anger stems from?
Past trauma?
Okay. Like childhood trauma stuff?
Yes.
Okay. What have you done to address that?
I've done a lot of therapy. I've addressed these issues and I've since resolved a lot of them because they stem from a sibling in specific, and we've developed a very positive relationship now.
Okay. Moving forward, how do you plan on continuing to address that stuff?
Well, I'm going to be planning on maintaining treatment as that's a key element in progressing with my life, not only with mental health, but with drug treatment as well.
Okay.
I think that has been a little overlooked, but it has been addressed in SOTP, and there's about 8 weeks of, 8 weeks of just addressing that issue itself. And I feel that on the outs, that would be a key element as well to maintaining my progress.
How much of your substance use contributes to the charges that you're here for?
A lot.
Okay.
I mean, I wouldn't have had the arguments that I had it not been for my drug use.
Okay. What's your drug of choice?
Methamphetamines,
Okay. How long were you using that for?
4 years.
During that 4 years, was there a period of time where you were sober?
Yes.
What's the longest time you were sober for during that time?
About 6 months.
Okay.
But do note that I had an original addiction to alcohol up until 22, and I remained sober from 22 until 27.
What caused the alcohol addiction?
The availability was a big part.
Okay.
It was socially accepted,
Okay.
and it was just around me a lot.
So do you feel like you kind of just traded the alcohol for the methamphetamine at some point?
Yes.
Okay. Sir, if there's restitution owing in your case, are you willing to pay that?
It is already paid.
Sorry, and I just realized in your sex offender assessment that you do identify as female, correct?
That was to not be addressed this time.
Well, how would you like me to refer to you as?
Sure.
She, her?
Sure, right now.
I mean, that's really just up to you.
It's just, I didn't want to bring it up because of the
That's
family
fine.
aspect.
That's fine. Sir, if your victims, what would you say to your victims at this point?
I can only say sorry I can't express that enough.
Okay.
I can say that the only thing I can control is changing myself. I can't change the past, but I can definitely forge the future.
Okay.
And this is something that I really regret. And I really just feel awful about.
What would you tell them to convince them that you're okay to be paroled if the board chooses to do so?
I'm sorry for wasting so much of the years and the damage that I've caused, not only to my victim, but to the family, the kids. I will leave that behind me and I will move on my own direction.
Okay. Do you feel like there's anything moving forward that would prevent you from being able to complete a successful parole?
No, I think that as long as I stick to my plan and stick to treatment, there should be no fault.
Okay. So in looking at these programs, the only ones that I currently show as being completed are your anger management and the sex offender programming stuff. Are there other things that you have completed while you've been here?
Domestic violence?
Okay. Did you do that on the tablet?
No.
Okay.
It was a class done by Dr. Shumway
Okay.
before he left. So
Do you know about how long ago that was?
that was when I first got here into this prison. Just right before my first original hearing.
Okay. And I do show that you don't have any disciplinaries. Is that still accurate?
Correct.
Okay. What do you feel like for you overall has changed since being here in hopes that you don't end up back here?
Well, I took the treatment very serious.
Okay.
And I've applied the principles that I've gained in that treatment. And I've really reflected upon myself, who I was and who I want to be.
Okay.
And that has changed dramatically.
Sir, if you are paroled, what is that going to look like for you? Where do you plan on living?
Well, I have an option to go live with my dad upon conditions, but I would like to personally go to a halfway house such as Bonneville, seeing how I still have employment, an offer for employment in the Salt Lake Valley. That would be best.
Okay.
But not only that, but they offer structure
Okay.
and they offer treatment. And they offer a lot of things that I could possibly use my advantage.
Okay. What job do you have lined up?
7-Eleven.
Okay. And there is a possibility that there will be a no contact order between you and the victims in your cases until potentially therapeutically recommended through treatment and things like that. Is that something that you are willing to abide by?
Yes.
Do you have any other questions for me or for the board? Is there anything else you feel like the board needs to know or you would like them to know?
I would like to express my gratitude towards not only my family, but to everybody that has helped me develop into the person that I am today. That goes with the institution, that goes with the correctional officers, that goes with everybody that has helped behind the scenes. This has been a positive thing for me in my life.
Okay. Well, what I plan on doing is taking the information we discussed today, compiling that into a report, submitting that to the board. You do have a 15-year top, which puts you January 9th, 2036. That is the length of time the board will have jurisdiction over your case, given there are no other further offenses. Do you have any other questions for me, sir?
I do not.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and conclude this hearing. Good luck to you.
Well, the parole board grant, and you heard 2036 is his EOS, but they grant after 2 years locked up. And look, you might hear that, listen to this hearing and say, well, you know, he seemed to have, I don't know what maybe your takeaway was, but for me, I look at the record and no, it's almost year after year after year of violence. This enticing a minor thing was just one extra charge. I don't have any details on that. It sounded like it was something that was going on for maybe years. The way that he spoke about it, I don't know. But let me just share with you. So here it is. In 2015, we have, I don't know, failure to comply. We don't have that. What that means? Sorry, 2013, 2014, failure to comply. 11/5/2014, terroristic threats to a governmental unit, and I think that was when he threatened to cut the judge's head off. We'll read that article soon. 8/15/2017, threats against a judge board member. Actually, no, this is the threat against the judge board. So then you have 2019, domestic violence in the presence of a child and aggravated assault. 2019, 6/15, so it's 3 months later, criminal mischief. 5/30/2020, aggravated assault resulting in serious bodily injury. Okay. And violation of a protection order. So my guess is that's the person who he already assaulted in 3/31/2019. Now he violates a protective order and seriously hurts the person. Now, June 2nd, 2021, aggravated assault, deviant presence of a child, criminal mischief, aggravated assault, and again, violation of a protection order. And I cannot stand, if you can imagine, you have an aggravated assault with serious bodily injury, a judge gives you a protective order, and you go back and hurt the person again, and you're not in prison for that for a long time? These things drive me nuts because this is how people end up dead. 7/3/2021 charges. This says unknown. I guess that was the charge with, you know, engaging a child on a device, and he did not take responsibility to it. Listen, you know, when you listen to the words that he said, a child reached out to me and I just responded. Oh, so it's the child's fault, right? And then the other statement is the only thing I can control is changing myself. I can't change the past. I can only change the future. It's something I regret and feel awful about. I'm sorry. Then she says, what would you tell them that would convince them that it's okay to be paroled? The victims. We don't even know how many. The words were victims, okay? I'm sorry for wasting so much of the years. So we know this is going on for years, okay? Who knows what this is, but it's going on for years. And the damage that is caused, not only to the victim, but the family and the kids. So again, I don't know, is he talking about all those assault charges and his own kid? I don't know, it's not clear. But then he goes on to say, I will leave that behind me and move on in my direction. Wow, that's so good. You're leaving it behind. I'm sure it's difficult for you to do that. And we have in the charges, again, aggravated, in this jacket, it's aggravated assault resulting in bodily injury, 0 to 5 years. Aggravated assault, 0 to 5 years. Telephone, electronic communication, and harassment. It's just, this is someone who cannot stay out of trouble. This is someone who likes to physically harm others. It's like, don't be fooled by what you're seeing. Look at the actions. The ones who need to have, in my opinion, the ones who I have my empathy for are the victims and potential victims. Let's look at the judge thing. So this was written November 6, 2014, 10 years ago. Man arrested for allegedly threatening to cut off a judge's head. Again, I'd be terrified as a parole board member. A man who police say threatened to kill his family and then cut off the head of the Draper judge who was arrested on Wednesday. So he threatened to kill his whole family. This is a man who has physically hurt his family many times already. Joshua Jonathan Weber, 24, was booked into Salt Lake City County Jail for investigation of influence, impeding retaliation against a judge or a member of the Board of Pardons and Parole. According to Salt Lake County Jail report, one of Weber's friends, who was described as a colleague in the Army, contacted police after Weber sent him private Facebook messages that he wanted to kill his own family and cut the heads off of the Draper City judge. The friend took screenshots of the conversation and sent them to the police. So if it's his own friend that's telling on him, that must mean the friend must have believed him. Draper Police Sergeant Chad Carpenter could not confirm Thursday whether Weber actually had any ties to the U.S. Army. Detectives went looking for Weber and spotted him in the passenger seat of a vehicle. They stopped the car near 2000 blah, blah, blah at 8 p.m. Wednesday, according to the report. During subsequent questioning, Weber admitted to sending the message, the report said. Carpenter did not know Thursday if any weapons had been seized or if Weber had any access to weapons, but he said any threats to kill people are taken very seriously by this department. Whether Weber's threats to cut off the head of a judge were credible, Carpenter could not say. Our hopes is that Weber gets help. In October 2013, Weber pled guilty to Draper Justice Court to misdemeanor narcotics possession. According to the court records, he was placed in probation in order to go narcotic tested one each month for court records stated, but a warrant was issued for his arrest last month when he failed to show up for a court hearing. In 2010, Weber was convicted of assault on a police officer and assault on a healthcare provider. Wow, I don't even think those weren't, well, why were those not in his jacket here? I think we missed that, huh? It probably because records only go back 10 years, but I'm not sure. So these are additional, by the way, assaults that we did not just read in that document. He was placed on, maybe because it's misdemeanors. He was placed on probation as part of a sentence ordered to undergo narcotics and mental health treatment. It's, there you have it. A real prince. And let's just hope there are no new victims. But what's the saying? Repeat the same thing, expecting different results. Exactly. And with that, I'll let you go.
What red flags or risk factors have you been able to identify for yourself in treatment?
So I have manipulation as a risk factor, sexual interest in coercion and rape, interest in children, impulsivity, using drugs and alcohol to cope, using sex to cope, lack of intimate relationships with adults also is an issue for me. Those are the big ones that I have to pay the most attention to, and that I've been monitoring to see what are warning signs when they come up, so I can recognize my pattern. So I know that, oh, this risk factor is kicking in. I need to go talk to somebody or understand why that risk factor is kicking in.
Okay, can you talk to us about how you recognize that those risk factors are starting to become a problem?
We are about to watch the parole hearing for someone who was sentenced to 25 years for what they did to the child over and over and over again. There's, of course, much more in this hearing that we're going to go through that might frustrate some of you. We'll unpack it with all the details at the end.
So it looks like, we have Demas next, and is her preferred name Jade?
Yes, it is. Yep.
Okay. Any updates or anything that we should know about her before we bring her in?
No, I will tell you that I think at times she's been incarcerated for a very long time. And I think that this possibility of release has got her maybe hyper-focused a little bit on it. So I think that's kind of been the focus, and maybe it's not that she's made bad choices by any way, but I think that she's just been a little bit more vulnerable, if that makes sense. But I think she's very hyper-focused on
on what she's gonna do when she gets out and how she's gonna be. I mean, I think she's been laid down for 20 years, so a lot has changed and she knows that. So.
All right.
I don't.
We're ready to bring her in.
Let me go get it. You can sit in my chair and then I'll just sit right by you.
Good morning.
Morning.
Could you please state your name, your preferred name, and your state ID for us, please?
Justin DeMoss, Jade, and 683-3460.
Thank you, Ms. DeMoss. My name's Meredith Lamberti, and here with me are Renee Schulte and James Moses, and we're the 3-member panel of the Board of Parole who are going to be talking to you this morning.
Okay.
All right. Why don't you start by giving us, a brief but detailed explanation of the crime that you committed, and also, what was going on in your life at that time.
So I committed second degree sexual abuse and indecent contact with a child. I was a babysitter for a family that lived in the same apartment building as me, and the youngest son and I got close in that, and then I ended up sexually abusing him because he ended up staying with me a lot. At the time of the stuff I was going through when that happened, I had been raped in high school, and I was dealing with not talking about it, and I had tried to commit suicide, so I was still recovering from all that stuff. So I had been resorting to using drugs and alcohol, scared to get into adult relationships, and partying a lot, underage drinking. So.
How old were you at the time?
19.
Okay. So I want to back up a little bit. You had said that you turned to drugs and alcohol as one of your coping mechanisms.
Yes.
What drugs were you using, and like what was your use looking like? How often and when did it start? Things like that.
I used marijuana and crack. I didn't use the crack very often. I only tried it like 3 times with one of the roommates I was living with. But marijuana, I kind of just used that at any party we had. So like we had parties every week, so at least once a week. And I got introduced to marijuana by a friend in high school. So, and then I got introduced to crack by one of my roommates.
And then what about your alcohol usage?
My dad was very lenient on letting us drink underage as long as we stayed in the house. So I got introduced to alcohol when I was in 5th grade, and it was just considered okay as long as I stayed in the house. So.
Around the time of the crime, how frequently would you say you were drinking?
3 times a week, starting on Fridays, normally to Sunday night.
Okay. So kind of like binge drinking over the weekends?
Yeah.
And then you had mentioned your mental health. So can you talk to us about where you are at right now with your mental health and medications?
Right now, I'm actually doing really good with my mental health. I even set up my own mental health plan for when I get out on my own, and then ran it through my counselor to let her know. I've learned about EMDR therapy. I was going to start it when I was at Clarinda to work through the trauma from being sexually abused. And I ended up coming back here for treatment, so I didn't get to start it, but I've already had with the psychologist here a meeting with the lady I'm going to do. I had a false positive because of the lamotrigine that I'm on, made me have a false positive on a UA just last week, but they found out it was a false positive. I communicate really well here with the psychologist and my counselor. When I first got here, we made a wellness plan for me. And then I'm redoing the wellness plan again for when I get out to have all that stuff together.
Okay. I do see a note that it was a false positive. Thank you for that. So you've been incarcerated for a very long time, right?
Yes.
So do you know, or have any connections out in the community where you're gonna go? Or are you aware of, I know you identified a number of places that you can go for mental health and medications. You know, how familiar are you, I guess, with the community that you're gonna be going into?
I grew up in that area and all my family is still in that area, so I know the area really well. I'm very comfortable there. I know like even like the mental health facilities to go to, I know where they're at. I know some of the staff that was there. And then my sister is a nurse, so for the gender dysphoria stuff, her boss actually already sent me a thing saying that I can go work with her on that because that's in Oskaloosa in that area. So I'm pretty comfortable with all that in that area. So
Okay, that's good to hear. So you mentioned your sister, and I think I see some notes about your mom also being a support person for you. Is that right?
yes, but I got to be careful with that because she also victimized me as a child. So I'm only trying to be around her a limited amount of time because I want to make sure my mental health stays stable and not go backwards.
Okay. Okay. Are there any other people that you have as a support system for you in the community?
My brother Jake, who's my trustee. I have an aunt and a cousin and a few other aunts and uncles in that area. And then my oldest sister, Tabitha, is there. So.
And then I think my final question for you before I let my colleagues ask questions are, what red flags or risk factors have you been able to identify for yourself in treatment?
So I have manipulation as a risk factor, sexual interest in coercion and rape, sexual interest in children, impulsivity, using drugs and alcohol to cope, using sex to cope, lack of intimate relationships with adults also is an issue for me. Those are the big ones that I have to pay the most attention to, and that I've been monitoring to see what are warning signs when they come up, so I can recognize my pattern. So I know that, oh, this risk factor is kicking in. I need to go talk to somebody or understand why that risk factor is kicking in.
Okay, can you talk to us about how you recognize that those risk factors are starting to become a problem?
When it comes to the sexual interest, I normally my body temperature gets dropped, like I feel like ice cold and like almost like I'm touching an electric fence, getting shocked. And so then also like my ears will start ringing and I'm realizing that, okay, my body's kind of thrown off here. It's interested in something. So I've learned to pay attention to how that feels and be able to pay attention that, okay, so where am I at? Who am I around? What is causing that? And narrow in on it and figure out how to remove myself from the situation and or go seek help and talk to someone on my, like here's been my support system that we made in my wellness plan. So.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna see if my colleagues have any questions for you now. Renee?
Yeah, Jay, just a couple of questions. So you've been in for a very long time. So tell me what's one of your biggest concerns about being released? What are you worried about?
I think the biggest concern is adjusting after being gone for so long because it's been almost 2 decades. So there's a lot that's changed and going out living as a transgender in an area that I know really well, but most people only know me as my past in that area and trying to show like that I've changed, I'm not that person, I think is going to be the biggest challenge because people in where I grew up change is really hard for them to accept and realize in some people. So I think that's gonna be my biggest challenge is not backing down from being the person I am and staying focused on that and not trying to give up on myself just because they might give up on me.
And I'm going to ask the opposite. What are you the most excited about if you were to move forward?
Getting to transition further than just where we got to go in prison. And I want to continue my education because I want to start eventually a nonprofit that works with ex-felons and their families so they have more support in the community and build better reentry. And I think that it can start when you're in county jail. So I think you work through it all the way through the prison time and the county jail time and then upon release. So I want to work on that eventually as a long-term goal.
All right. Well, thank you so much for answering my questions. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
James, you have any questions?
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, Jade. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Hey, doing pretty good. I saw that you completed a degree, associate's degree at Iowa Central.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So I had started at first when Newman offered the Grinnell program. I started doing that, but I was struggling with that because I didn't want to change my behaviors and I wasn't recognizing how my behaviors were actually affecting me. So I ended up gradually shifting to Blackstone Career Institute and I earned my paralegal for that. And that got me into a rhythm of staying on time, time management, completing a goal. And so then I went and I started doing, when they brought in the Iowa Central program, I decided to pick up on that. And it was a fast pace, but it made me actually sit down and I had to start working on goals. So I had to sit there and know that this is what I gotta do. And I had to reprioritize. So instead of thinking inside prison and the environment I dealt with every day in here, I had to think outside. What is my life like? Actually prioritize what's important to me, and getting my education is extremely important to me. And I want to further that education. So I had to make sure I put myself first versus putting people in prison that I've met and those kind of relationships over myself. So it allowed me to grow. And then I got to help other people that would start the program after us. And like, I got to be their tutor and show them how to work on the system, like with the homework and stuff. So that made me feel better because it was giving back to not just for the college who took a chance on all of us, but it was giving back to my classmates and helping them, encourage them to move forward just as much and that change is possible for all of us. So I really liked it.
Yeah, I hear that in your sharing as you were answering the second part to my colleague's question. So in terms of what are you excited about doing if you were released? So
yeah, I would like to go on to my bachelor's in business marketing.
All right. And then when I hear you say business marketing, what ideals do you have?
Well, I figured since a nonprofit, a lot of like the to like get the funding and all that, you're gonna have to have creative marketing strategies, especially when it's trying to make people comfortable with working with people that are in prison and incarcerated. But so, and continuing that, I feel like you got to step outside the box, challenge your creativity, and it also builds up really good communication skills with people. And I'm kind of looking forward to that for business marketing because it challenges me to always be interactive with other people.
Okay. And then my last question, what would you say that if I was to ask you to state 5 values that you have today that you didn't have prior to being incarcerated, what would you say those 5 values would be? Or if there's more than just 5, then please share those as well.
Honesty. I like to always used to lie or tell half truth. And I found out being honest is a lot less stressful. I don't have to remember everything I said and try to keep the story straight. So honesty, I've gotten like I used to think family was important, but now I realize it's just relationships in general are important because your family is not necessarily going to always be there. And I've learned that through doing such a long period of time. But you can actually build necessarily a better family for yourself by the people that actually want to stay by you, support you, so they don't have to be blood related. So I guess families took it on a different meaning, but it's still the same important to me. Accountability is a huge thing for me. I think that you always have to hold yourself accountable and not put it off on other people. Make sure you're making sure you're using your I statements and don't blame your past situations because you still, at the end of the day, make your choice. I believe your attitude is important because every day you wake up and you make that decision, not somebody else. Even if somebody else is having a bad day and they're taking it out on you, it's still your choice to let that affect you. So those 4 are extremely important to me. And then my faith has become very important to me because it's a way of self-expression, but it gives me a purpose to be who I am and focus on what I want. and try to encourage other people to do the same thing. And then I also believe in just self-identity, which I never really valued before. I always tried to please other people and do what they expected me to do. And finally, for the first time in my life, I'm actually living for me, and that by being transgender and admitting my truth. And so self-identity has become extremely important to me.
Jay, thank you for sharing. And that concludes my questions to you today. Thank you.
Thanks. Renee, any follow-up questions?
No.
All right, so Jade, now is your time to tell us anything else that you would like for us to know or anything that you might have prepared for us today.
So I've learned that by being in prison, like I still feel in a sense that by coming to prison, like I got off pretty easy because I had so many charges that were quarter 70s and they ran them all together. And after taking treatment and putting myself in my victim's shoes, I realized that that was a blessing to get my sentences ran together, because technically, like I would feel like I would have deserved to have them ran back to back because I did that to someone else so much. Through my own experiences that have happened in prison, I've learned to be both what it's like to be victimized and also to have done the abuse. So I've got a different output on that with like just how that affects the person. And it's allowed me to grow as a person and get to know more about myself and actually show more empathy towards other people and not be so self-centered and wanting what's mine, feeling entitled. So I don't have to worry about that. And it's allowed me a lot of self-growth and be more helpful for other people, like just even being like someone to listen to and encourage it. And if I can show that and I can do that for myself, then other people can do that.
Is there anything else that you'd like for us to know before we start our deliberation?
Hold on. Do I need to tell them about the investigation? Nope, that's it.
All right, well, sit back and listen and we'll let you know what our decision is. So Renee or James, what are your thoughts on the recommendation of parole to the work release?
I'm going to be supportive of the parole today. I thought this was a really good interview. Sounds like they've really been taking treatment to heart and learning a lot about themselves in treatment, learning a lot about what they like and don't like, and understanding the importance of medication and how it's been helpful. I was really actually very impressed with today's interview, and the desire to continue education and to go out and help others is also a way to give back, which was also very impressive. So I'll be paroling them. I think there's the 10H we discussed. There needs to be a 30A for minors, given the type of crime. On the 40A, substance use, mental health, SOTP aftercare, and medication compliance, and a 50A.
Okay, James?
Yes, thanks, Miranda. I too, like my colleague, I was impressed with Jade's interview. I thought she was very transparent. I really enjoyed hearing what her values are when she talks about being, honesty, and how she, described family. Not that it's been the best or supportive, but understands family, but trying to, I guess, find the right relationships that helps to develop the family that I think she wants to be around. She spoke of accountability, which is what I like. Just her just telling the truth and being truthful as she can be. So it minimized any ad-libs or any untruths. The attitude, knowing how, that the individual is responsible for their attitudes and how they can shape their day. And then her faith, just having that spiritual, holistic foundation. And it was not intriguing to hear about her being comfortable with sharing her self-identity, wanting to tell her truth and her voice, and then just what she was able to accomplish with her associate's degree and looking to further that, going into presumably a non-for-profit. So I too, in agreement with my colleague to support DOC's position. Codes 10B, what was I at the residential facility, 30A, indirect contact with minors, 30C, 40A, still addressing the mental health. I think some cognitive classes will still be good for her, and substance abuse, just that checkered past, with debt, allowing her to drink at the young age of 5th grade, and the 50A, the alcohol. But the other one is continuing her therapy and finding places to lean on that really helps to support and give her the solid foundation around her that she needs in preparation to transition.
So I'm also going to support this recommendation. I thought that Jade was very transparent with us in our questions, and we asked difficult questions, talk about her red flags, and she was obviously to me, it seems like she's done a lot of work on recognizing those risk factors for herself, talking about being in tune with her body temperature and how to remove herself from a situation that's dangerous for her is a lot of self-reflection. And, with this being a second charge, there's no special sentence. So if we want any transition period of supervision with a TDD of 28, I think this is a good time for release for that community transition. So I want to sum up. So this one, because we'll have to see her again, it's going to be the 10H. I have a 20A for limited internet usage because there's a minor victim. 20B, no early discharge. 30A, no contact with minors. 40A, SOTP aftercare, which James, that would cover the cognitive, but it would be, the Good Life has the cognitive element. It's just aimed toward people with sex offenses. And then substance abuse, mental health, medication, and then the 50A. Did I miss anything? All right, so Jade, you heard our discussion and we are going to grant your parole today. You heard our comments about your interview. We appreciate the honesty and the transparency that you had with us today. I'm going to explain to you a little bit about what we were talking about so you understand your parole order. So when you leave, you'll be subject to all the standard terms of parole that everyone has. And then what we do as a board is we place additional special terms of parole, and that's what we were discussing. So the first one that's important, it's a 10H. And what that means is that you're going to parole to the work release and start there. But your charges, sex abuse second, requires by law that before you leave the work release that they submit your release plan for street parole to us to review and approve. You won't come back to us for an interview, but we will just review your parole plan on paper. And that's just required because of the charge. It's nothing that you did in the interview or didn't do in the interview. That's just a function that we have to do. The 20A is limited internet usage. When you go out, because you had a minor victim, there will be some limitations on what you can and can't access for the internet. You will be able to do things like job seeking, but you will have some limitations on social media and things like that that will line up with registration requirements and SOTP aftercare requirements as well. A 20B is no early discharge, so you will stay on parole until your TDD in May of 28. 30A is no contact with any minor children unless it's approved by your PO. The 40A, those are treatment codes. So those are things that we'd like you to engage in the community. SOTP aftercare classes. We'd like you to get a substance abuse evaluation to see where you're at because you have been in for a long time. Continue to address your mental health and then today, and we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
Good luck, Jake.
Thank you. See you guys next month.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
13 seconds. 13 seconds was the total amount of time that this roach used to give the detail and to talk about the crime that was committed on this child. The rest of the interview was to make, I'm the victim. I'm the victim. This was done to me in high school. This was done to me by my mother. This was done to me by the system. 13 seconds was what was done to that child. To an 11-year-old boy entrusted in the hands of a babysitter. Oh, he was spending time at my house. And then I was all messed up because in high school I was, this and then I was drinking, and it's like, sounds like this person's totally off the wall, and it's like it comes out that they were just drinking on the weekend. Like, who doesn't do that at 19 years old? The parole board's patting on the back. You're doing great. You're awesome. Good job. Go get out there. Yeah. You might want to give some credit for the idea that this roach was able to transparently describe all the risk factors, like fantasizing about sexual assault and fantasizing about children. But and I think you have to give credit where it's due, that there was transparency around that fascination. I do, because we don't hear it. But knowing that, wouldn't you think that maybe it's safer for this person to remain behind bars? In the way that it was described, the feelings of turning numb and all this, like getting that was scary. In the final statement, I want to, when I get out, to not be so like self-centered and focused on myself. Yet meanwhile, in this entire thing, there was 13 seconds. It was from minute mark 3:15 to minute mark 3 minutes and 38 seconds. That was all that was used to talk about the crime, and it was so vague. I committed sexual assault. First, I don't know, second. And indecent contact with a child. But I only did it because now blame. This stuff gets me so pissed off. And again, it's like, who are you going to blame? You're going to blame the roach who's, has serious mental problems, who is, just wired differently. They like children. What can you do? Or you blame the system for not protecting our children. And this judge did it. Now let's keep in mind, this inmate who's locked up in a male prison, who is registered under a male name, who's in the registry, who's Justin Adam DeMoss, sentenced by the judge, refusing to take accountability, found guilty in a jury, filed 2 appeals claiming innocence, okay? In both appeals claiming innocence, not taking accountability, making a 13-year-old boy victim get up on the stand. This is the type of person who we're dealing with. Would you have known any of that by watching this parole hearing? Then you get locked up, and on the taxpayer's dollar, you get to have the treatment to fulfill your... That to me is crazy. It just is. This should not be taxpayer responsibility. It just shouldn't. We have people that are dying. We have veterans that can't get medical help. We have law-abiding citizens who have worked their whole lives who can't get the help they need. But in prison, you can have a total voluntary type of expensive process done because you feel like it? You get locked up, 25-year sentence for sexually assaulting a 13-year-old child who was entrusted in your care over and over and over and over again. And then when you're locked up on a taxpayer dollar, you get to have your transition? I don't care what you do on your own time. I don't care what you do on your own dollar. By God, I'll support you. Hallelujah. But on the taxpayer dollar, while in prison, make it make sense. And this isn't just Iowa. We have seen this in Connecticut. We have seen it in Utah. And I know there's going to be everyone coming on here and saying, Mandoo. Cancel Mandoo. Let's read this appeal. You know, because we do live in a world now where the predator or the abuser seems to have more rights than the victim, than the children. That's madness. And this channel speaks on behalf of the victims, who you realize that there was no one here speaking on behalf of the victim. I don't believe that there are problems with whatever. I have no proof of it. But in many cases, the victims aren't properly notified. And we've never seen a DA show up in an Iowa hearing. I don't know if it's just something they don't do. Background facts and proceedings. Sometime around May 20th, 2005, 11-year-old CG reported bad touching by DeMoss. CG was interviewed and examined on May 31st, 2005. The medical examination revealed no physical evidence of sexual assault. The physician who performed the exam, Dr. Mark Esther, nonetheless concluded, based on CG's behavior and statements, he had been assaulted no more than 20 times, but at least 4 to 8 times or so. The same day, Sheriff Daniel Johnson located DeMoss. He told DeMoss he wanted to talk to him at the law center. DeMoss agreed to go with Johnson and rode to the front seat of the patrol car. DeMoss asked Johnson why they were going to the law center, and Johnson told him they would talk when they got there. Sergeant Todd Stewart joined Johnson and DeMoss when they arrived. DeMoss signed a statement waiving his Miranda rights. When asked if he knew why he was there, DeMoss answered he had heard rumors involving himself and CG. The officers told him that they knew about the situation and advised DeMoss to tell the truth. According to both officers, DeMoss answered their questions and admitted to fondling CG at least 12 times and performing this, and how that is still only 2 and I with him 10 or 11 times. He then wrote out and signed a 3-page statement describing how he had gone from babysitting CG in November 2004 to being his friend and to being a sexual partner. In April and May 2005, DeMoss was friends with some of CG's older siblings and had helped babysit the younger children, including CG, while their mother worked late. In November, CG's mother asked if CG could move in with DeMoss due to CG's behavioral problems and other difficulties. While the mother worked late, CG's mother asked if CG could move in with DeMoss. Due to CG moved in with DeMoss on November 20th, 2024. The arrangement was only supposed to last 1 month, but CG continued living with DeMoss for 6 months. How does this happen? Come on. Oh, come on. That just doesn't make any sense. During some of that time, Demas shared an apartment with 2 other individuals. According to Demas' statement in February 2005, CG allegedly began, I mean, come on, Mom. What the hell? Allegedly began both asking Demas, who was homosexual, about Demas' sexual orientation and questioning his own orientation. It was at that time that he's 11 years old. Demas wrote that the two began to see each other. Demas claimed he told CG that they could not engage in sexual relationship due to their age difference. Demas and CG moved into a 2-bedroom house on April 20th, 2005. According to Demas' statement, it was at this time he and CG began engaging in sexual activities. The statement goes on to describe a detailed progression of those activities. It states the two had intercourse 11 times and oral 3 times. The statement also mentioned hand to genital contact, but does not state specific number of occasions. At trial, Demas testified he never had contact with CG. He stated his written statement only recounted the rumors he heard about himself and CG. He also stated officers gave him suggestions for details and dates. CG testified via closed-circuit television. He stated Demas took off their clothes and touched. Okay. I'll put the links in the description. It's just so sickening. On the second day of trial, Demas moved for mistrial. The mom should be in prison with him, frankly. On second day of trial, Demas moved to mistrial. The trial judge had asked the court reporter outside the presence of the jury whether any witness had yet spoken to issue of identity. The court reporter acknowledged no one had pointed out the defendant. The judge told the court reporter to advise both attorneys. The judge had asked whether identity was in the record. Both attorneys agreed there had been no evidence as the identity court heard arguments. Concerning the motion outside the presence of the jury, they denied it. The state recalled Sergeant Stewart's identity to Demas. I don't know. The jury found Demas guilty of 11 counts of second-degree sexual assault, abuse, and 12 counts of indecent contact with a child. Why is it not first degree? They're saying, I mean, would first degree, I don't know. The court sentenced him, I guess first degree is it's just not consent though, but I guess they're saying that if it would be more physical pain or something. The district court sentenced him to indeterminate terms of imprisonment, not exceeding 25 years on each count. Second degree sexual abuse imprisonment exceeding 2 years, blah, blah, blah. The court ordered sentences to run concurrently. It also issued a 26-year no contact order for the child and his family. Now, here's what's crazy about this, I'll tell you, which is in his appeal, there was a lot in the appeal, but in the appeal, one part of the appeal was the no contact order, to remove the no contact order. And believe it or not, that was the one part that won. No contact order vacated and remanded for sentencing. So even through all of this monster was saying, no, I don't want the no contact order to exist. And the court agreed. I asked Richard, I said, how is that possible? Richard basically says that it was, apparently they felt that the law applied to the no contact order violation was wrongly applied. So the order was nullified. It seems that the parole board still has in place a no contact order, which is great. But I don't understand why they thought it was wrongfully applied. They bring up here like a confession letter that was brought up in the appeal. Demas never gave the child a letter. In the letter, Demas asks CG forgiveness for the one thing that happened one night. He states his conscience is full of guilt. He also references CG getting out of bed and going upstairs when someone came to the door. At that point, the letter states, reality began to sink in for me. Sixth, Demas testified most of his written confession was true, including the child's reported interest in sexual orientation and the perception that the house was their first place together. The only parts he denies are those having dealt with sexual contact. Finally, Demas concedes there is evidence sufficient to convict him of one count of second degree abuse, and 2 counts of indecent contact. We conclude there is sufficient evidence to support the jury's verdict. And then there was another appeal. I don't, where DeMoss acknowledges he has certain responsibilities and expectations to abide by because of his age and maturity level, but admits he let his thoughts, feelings, and emotions get in the way first, and that was wrong. Although DeMoss claimed at trial the letter was an apology for a kiss on the cheek. It's the same letter. A jury could assess his credibility and reject this claim. I don't know. There's another appeal that they wanted to change the venue. So, anyways, the one good news is yes, I think 20 years in prison, which is just much more than what we're used to seeing. I mean, let's be real, we're used to seeing 2-3 years for this type of stuff. Richard has the notes here. 85% would have been 21 years. So I don't think the 85% is even there yet. But the good time date was going to be 2028, 5/10/2028. And there you have it. I mean, that this was called a good parole hearing is madness. I don't think he got anything out of it except knowing that this person at least identifies the core interests and fantasies are, which are scary and dangerous. Very scary and dangerous. And this just reminds me of how important it is to always go into the bathrooms with your children, because you don't know who's going to be in there. You can never be too safe because the world permits monsters to walk amongst us.
This hearing is being conducted in consideration for the parole application for Allison Bouchard, inmate number 433904. He is serving a sentence of 20 years suspended after 8 years with 25 years probation for illegal sexual contact with a minor and sexual assault third. As of today, records reflect a parole eligibility date of December 4th, 2023. There is no victim input in the case. There is an accountability plan there is an offender accountability plan for the offender. It has been reviewed and shows that he has completed the Voices program, Tier 2, a job, and the short-term sex offender program. Utilizing the WARNA, the offender's overall score for recidivating falls into the moderate range. Mr. Bouchard, this is your opportunity to tell the board why you believe you should be granted parole. You may begin.
I had written a letter.
Sure, go ahead, read that.
Okay. Thank you for your time, parole board members, for giving me the opportunity to speak on my behalf today. I am not the same person who entered 4 years ago. I have grown a lot here by doing programs that were provided to me here at the facility. The amount of remorse and regret that I feel still weighs heavy in my heart, and I truly feel horrible about the offense that I've committed. At the time of my arrest, I was not ready to talk about it with the victim, but today I am ready to make amends to the people I've hurt. I have learned through different groups how the victim was affected and how their family was affected as well. And it has made me become more aware and more sensitive how I treat people today and in the future. Before and during my arrest, I have struggled with depression, alcohol, and drug abuse, and it led me to hurt people and lack control of irrational behavior. But today I am 4 years sober-minded, and am thinking in a more stable mindset, thanks to proper medication, sobriety, therapy, and groups that I have done and worked very hard to achieve. I can get through my day without using drugs and alcohol. I have also had a job at the facility for 3 years now, and I complete my programs that are requested of me to do. Sorry, a little shaky this morning. I don't show up late to my appointments or get into any trouble at this facility. I encourage those around me to go to groups, get a job, and go to school, and to be productive in their time here. I have shown support to a few of my close friends here by reminding them that we all have made bad choices, but we are all worthy of being given a second chance. I believe that I should be granted parole because I have spent my entire time here out of trouble, holding a job, having a good reputation at the facility, had done intense work on becoming a better person upon re-entering society. I also believe I can be a productive member of society. I've been working in a warehouse. I've gotten my forklift certification. I've been working there for 3 years now. I also have I am truthfully sorry and remorseful for what I've done, and I take full responsibility for my own actions. I've put a lot of effort into becoming a better person in my time here by going to groups and working to prepare myself for release. Because of that, I am now more sensitive of how I treat people. I hope to make amends one day to the victim and the victim's family, and I'm hoping that you will give me the opportunity today to make amends with society by granting me parole. Thank you.
Thank you for your statement, sir. We do have questions for you. When we're done with our questions, we'll deliberate. You can listen to our deliberation and we'll give you our decision.
Yes, ma'am.
And we'll begin with my colleague, Ms. Chance.
Okay. So, you didn't want to be referred to as Allison, right?
I didn't, or
Mark?
Adam.
Adam?
Yeah, Adam, that's okay.
Okay. Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, Adam, so I know you participated in several programs, and in your opening statement, you talked about how what you learn in those programs helped to make you the better person that you are now. So I wanted to go back and ask you about Tier 2. What tools you learned in that program that you found very helpful?
So Tier 2 was a really good group. They had assigned me to do that right when I got here. And it was really good because it was in a group setting. And I had a lot of issues coping with triggers, and especially being in a stressful situation, it was hard to stay sober. But reaching out to people in the community here, whenever I felt like I needed a substance to help me, especially being in this stressful environment, I felt like I needed something to help me cope. But connecting with people, and Counselor Cohen's, the counselor that did the tier, that did the group, was very good. She was on top of it. She was very helpful. And I just wish the group was longer. It was only, I think, 8 weeks. It was a very good group. It helped me out a lot.
So you were able to identify your triggers?
Yeah.
Okay, and you developed some coping skills?
Yeah.
Okay, so the other program that you took was Voices.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about how helpful Voices was to you.
Voices was a really eye-opening group. That talked about the victim side of it. And I had not seen the victim side of it at all until I took that group. And that was a really hard group to do for me, because most of us see the crime as a one-sided thing. And I already felt remorse about doing my crime, but I really truly felt the remorse afterwards, seeing how the victim was affected by their abusers and stuff. So it was a really hard group, but I'm glad I did it. It was really hard to do, but it was a really hard group.
But you were able to finish it.
Yes.
And you were able to have a better understanding of what you think the victim, the impact of the victim was.
Yes.
All right, so the other one was the short-term sex offender program.
Yeah.
Okay. Was that very helpful to you?
Yeah, it really was. Yeah, I chose to do that group, not in a group setting, because I felt like I would learn more on a one-on-one setting. So I think that was like a 4-month group. And I learned a lot about that too.
So you did a one-on-one for that?
Yeah. Yeah, I met with just a counselor in that group, and nobody else was in the group.
Okay. And so what types of skills did you develop out of that program?
I learned that there was a lot of triggers, and there was a lot of other reasons that sex offenders, that with my actions as myself, because I'm considered a sex offender, that there's a lot of reasons that people with that crime do that. And they're very angry, and it was a really hard group. But I finished it, and it was really eye-opening, because there's things that people do, and there's hurt that came out, and there was a lot of hurt that I had as a child, being sexually abused as a child. And a lot of that came out in the group that I was bearing down, and a lot of sex offenders have been sexually abused as children. And,
So you feel anger was part of your reason for why you committed that offense?
I
But
believe
you-
some, as well as, substance abuse was a big part of it too.
Okay, so anger and substance abuse.
I believe so.
But participating in the one-on-one for you was very helpful, because you were able to deal with other issues that you
Yeah.
feel impacted your behavior.
Yeah, and I felt like I was able to open up more without having to be in a group setting where there was, other eyes to watch. And, having a charge like this, there's people who are very skeptical and kind of target you based on that. And I felt like I wouldn't be able to open up as much if I was in a group setting, having to worry about what the person next to me thinks about, you know what I mean? So I felt like it benefited me more.
Okay. So, in thinking of, what you're going to do when you go back in the community, what does your release plan look like?
So I'm going to be living with my grandmother and father. And they pretty much already have a room set up for me and everything. I'd pretty much have to be starting from scratch. I don't have a license. So that would be like the first thing. I'd have to get my name changed, job. I have been looking up, because they have an app on the tablet here. You can write your charge and look up jobs of what jobs hire for, specific jobs. I work in a warehouse, and I've been there for 3 years now, and that's kind of the job I want to do once I get out. I don't really want to get like a little petty job. I want to get like a career job, so then I can work up the chain. So, and I do want to get my barber's license. I have a lot of things planned. I want to get my CDL license, and I have my forklift certification already. There's a lot of things that I have planned, I didn't have motivation before, because my life was so run by alcohol, and
yeah,
I had no motivation other than to get the next drink, and it was hard for me to keep a job. And now I've held a job here for 3 years. It's the longest time I've ever had a job.
So you like being a barber?
Yeah, I cut hair here. I also cut my own hair all the time, and it's something that I was doing before I got here. When I had my ins and outs of rehab, I would cut some of the residents' hair, to make some money so I can get cigarettes when I was in rehab. So it was fun.
CDL? Why CDL?
The CDL, because if I work in like a warehouse, I can be the truck driver, and that's really good money, really good money. So then I can get my own apartment and just get some stability in my life. So
What else do you think that you need to do when you go back in the community, besides, a job and, going back to school? And
definitely get in touch with doctors. I have to get on state insurance. I have to get back into IOP. I have to stay on my medication here, because it's actually a really good medication that I've been on. I take it every day. It's a good cocktail sort of medication. And just get in the habit of everything I've been doing here. It's kind of like a routine to give me a structured routine that I didn't have before. So I'm kind of in the habit of waking up at the same time, taking my medication in the morning, and going to work. It's like the same thing every day. So it's kind of helped me, get ready for when I leave.
you know, when you go back in the community, you're gonna have to follow through with participating in a sex offender program.
Yes, I do know that. Yep.
Okay. You know, one thing that you also did is you were asked about what you consider a high risk for you when you go back in the community. And your answer to that was running into the victim and the victim's family. Have you thought about how you would deal with that?
I have thought about it. I mean, I just would avoid places that, I mean, because that's why I want to get my license. So then, like, I wouldn't have to work in the same town as where I live. I could work, you know, many towns away. I've already been pre-thinking. I'm not going to be working in the same town. I'm not going to be shopping in the same town. I'm not going to be, you know, I'm living a town over, but I'm not going to be shopping. I'm not going to be, it's, you know, it's like when you get sober, you can't go back to the same places. You can't go back to your stomping grounds because once you go back there, old habits come back. You know what I mean? I can't, you know, so.
Yeah, but you know that even if you were out there and you encounter, you know what you have to do.
Yeah.
What is it that you would?
I would probably have to call my parole officer and let him know that I had seen them out and to let him know that I had not made any contact, that I have seen them at such and such place.
Okay, and I know this is your first offense, so I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Chen. Mr. Paul?
Thank you. Do you prefer Adam or Mr. Bouchard?
Either or.
So, Adam, just a couple things because you sound like you're in a really good place.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that I read was that you didn't like AA meetings. And
prior, yeah.
And it's okay. I mean, I just wanted to talk for a second. So, what is it about them that you didn't like?
I think it was the older crowd. I hate to say it like that. I like NA meetings more.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're open to going to some like 12-step recovery meetings?
Yeah. Yeah, I think they have more of like NA meetings usually have more of like a younger crowd. So
Yeah.
I prefer usually those.
Right. There's also young people's AA meetings. So you take a look at that.
Mhm.
Do you think your gender issues, you think that drove your substance use at all?
Yeah, I believe so.
So when you came out to meetings, did you find meetings that you felt comfortable in and that you could get the support that you need?
When I was out in California for a stretch of time, right before I had, got arrested, I was out there and at Sober Living, and they had meetings out there with LGBT meetings. I'm sure they have them around here.
They do.
Because it's more. I just don't know the exact locations, but those type of meetings I really enjoy going to.
They do. It's really important. The work that you've done. You talked about doing a lot of really good work. And you had a really great recovery plan that you put together that I read that when you met with Officer Boysford, you were able to share that. And certainly you've come along and you've taken programs and you have a lot of great insight, So it's the reentry piece, and and I think you have a really good handle on what you want to do coming back into the community. I just want to make sure that you to be successful. And certainly I've talked about it with a couple of people before. CCAR has recovery coaches. I know that the recovery coaches are really active there at York.
What
getting
is,
some.
what is
So the-
CCAR?
The Connecticut Community for Addiction Recovery.
Okay,
And they have coaches that help with the transition back out into the community. And they can really identify resources and things like that, recovery related, that you might, find supportive.
okay,
So, I would suggest that, your successful reentry is really important to us as an organization.
yeah,
All right. I wish you well.
thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. So I'm sure you're aware, sir, that there will be restrictions. You'll be supervised by a specialized unit in the community. And you also have 25 years of probation to follow this sentence. You're aware there's a protective order in place for your victim
Yes,
till 2099. Okay. And there's restrictions with minors too. I just want you to be aware, be very cautious because they take that very seriously. Is your family divided as a result of your offense?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
But you do still have some family support.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Do you have any friends? Any other support?
No, everyone pretty much, yeah, everyone's gone.
Okay. All right.
Once I got here.
Well, it's something that you'll need to work on, right?
Yeah,
And hopefully you'll get out there and find your way, but certainly you're on a positive path and you've taken the steps necessary for that head start. So we wish you the best. Give us a
Thank you.
minute to deliberate and we'll give you our decision shortly. Ms. Chance.
So, Mr. Bouchard, has done very well for himself. I appreciated the fact that, he shared how helpful Tier 2 and Voices and the short-term sex offender program was. And, the fact that he chose to do the one-on-one, which helped him provide more insight into why he did what he did. And I think he has a very good release plan and he has some support. He's going to sponsor to his grandmother's house and he has a good release plan. He identified what a high risk was for him and how he would deal with it. And so I think Adam is ready to go back.
Thank you. Mr. Paul.
So Mr. Bouchard has done well with this incarceration and he has a really good plan as he re-enters the community. I would support his parole at this time.
Thank you. Agreed. Okay, in the matter of Allison, also known as Adam Bouchard, inmate number 433904, I'll make a motion to grant parole effective today, February 16th, 2024, with the following conditions. No contact with your victim, initials BC. You'll participate in a sex offender treatment program in the community. You're not to have contact with minors without the permission of your parole officer. You are not to consume alcoholic beverages. I had a mental health eval.
Yeah.
And a mental health evaluation and treatment if deemed necessary. Is there anything further?
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, sir. Do you understand? It's a lot and you will get it in writing and you'll sign off on these conditions, but do you have any questions?
no, thank you, God bless you.
All
Thank
right, we
you.
wish you the best. Keep
Thank
working,
you.
okay?
Thank you.
This concludes care for Allison, also known as Adam Bouchard, inmate 43390.
Right. So what did we just watch? We just watched an offender who does the worst to those who are the most vulnerable, those who cannot protect themselves. And she does this. She receives 2 felonies, a class B felony and a class C felony. Not as bad as a class A, but she got the maximum sentences for those felonies. 20 years for the B, 5 years for the C. And we know how lenient judges are in general when it comes to these cases and how lenient they are in Connecticut. Now, it's not fair to, we don't know. Maybe she walked upon a judge that is strict, but most likely what she did was terrible. She didn't go to trial. She took a plea deal, and they plead down on these cases. We don't have information on what it is that she did because it's all hidden under the rug. She took a plea deal. There's no transcripts of the trial. But if experience can teach us anything, is that she did the worst. And not just to the most vulnerable, not just to that who is under the age of 16, but also to a relative. And yet she is somehow out within 5 years. And then she is somehow out on parole when literally the interview was just garbage, which is typical what we see with offenders of this nature. To actually have the cluelessness, the idea that she blames her substance abuse issues on why it is that she committed these acts, which is BS to begin with, in my opinion, and then to state that she didn't want to attend AA because the reason why, because she prefers younger crowds. I didn't want to go to AA because the people were older there. Is the irony not how do you even make that statement when you're look what you're in prison for? And the parole board is just like, oh, let's put on the white gloves. Let's be all nice. How do you want to be called? You can't make this stuff up. She has nowhere in her plan when she gets out what program she's going to go to. This is actually a serious thing. I'm not all into the programs. I think it's these parole officers are drunk on the Kool-Aid. Like, how much is a program actually going to help someone? Probably a tiniest percentage. But one thing that I can sign up for is making sure that you have AA inside in your if you're going to tell me that you are so overwhelmed by your substance abuse that's what sent you down this road to do something that altered the life of the most vulnerable, that wrecked your own family, that gave you a 25-year sentence, yet somehow all of it suspended, and then you're not even gonna have a plan to go to AA? Joke. And then the whole prison system puts on white gloves for her. Here's your cocktail of drugs. Go ahead and, continue your what it is that you want to do on the taxpayer dollars. And and then not only that, but when you go to your classes where you have to go to in prison for your sex offender classes, you can actually go one-on-one instead of having a group therapy. Because why? She doesn't want people to look at her and say, oh, why would you do that? She doesn't want people to judge her. And so they actually arrange one-on-one, which is nuts. This is prison. What do you think is going to happen in the real world when you have to get out and attend these programs? You don't think people are going to judge you and look at you? But no, in Connecticut prisons, they'll let you do these classes one-on-one because they don't want your feelings to get hurt. And I just can't believe what I saw. In Connecticut, they don't ask her to say, what did you do? Which is a huge aspect of a parole hearing. Sometimes they ask, but they don't, because depending on what they answer will tell you everything you need to know. We have seen over and over again in Louisiana hearings when they say, what did you do? And so often those who offended against the most vulnerable will actually say, they came on to me. It was their fault. I didn't do anything wrong. And when you hear those answers, if there was any doubt, that they are not safe to be out in the public. But they don't even ask those questions. And so to sum it up, you have someone who offends the worst kind of nature. They don't attend AA because the crowd's too old. They attend their classes one-on-one because they don't want people to judge them. They blame their actions on because of their substance abuse issues, but have no plan or even are allowed to be mandated to have a plan to attend those substance abuse programs once they get out. And this is what you call a system after getting let out over, I guess, getting a 25-year total sentence and serving about 5. This is what you call a system that's put in place to protect the public. It's madness. And you probably wouldn't believe it if you didn't see it, but that's why I do this. And with that, here we are. We're at the end. And at the end, right before the ball drops on New Year's Eve, the final day of 2024. And I certainly hope I have many more days. We have many more days together, even after playing these set of hearings. But I figured before we go, I'll let you off with one of my favorite parole hearings from 2024. And that is when a man was hoping he'd be able to rap his way out of prison. I will just skip forward to the rap song. If you haven't seen the full parole hearing, you can find it in the playlist below. Check Utah, and it says, man raps his way out of prison or something. It's about a 15-minute parole hearing. It's quite interesting. But hey, I just wanted to say how much I appreciate all of you, and thank you all for being here with me for the year. And I hope that we can do it together for another one and many, many, many more to come. I do believe that we are making a small difference. I don't believe that I am being, I don't know what the word is, altruistic, head in this guy, blah, blah, blah. Look, the bottom line is most people had no idea what was going on behind closed doors at these parole hearings, and now we do, and we know, sadly, we know that in many cases, man, it's just messed up, and there's no reason that 99% of us should be aghast at the results of these parole hearings. That's just not the way things are supposed to be. 1% cannot control and dictate how things work for the 99%. But enough with that. Let's listen to a rap song. I'll see you on the other side. With much love.
I just want to go back home. Let me out of jail, prone not to make a wrong. Freedom is priceless without its ill. Baby, you my candy rain. I'm so for real, for real. I just want to sit in myself, feeling hella stressed out. Wonder when I'm gonna roll up the day I dress out. Experience opened my mind, taught me different values. I got a diploma, my pop told me, son, I'm proud of you. Achieve no grievance, considering my own life. Gain one to lose one, that's part of the sacrifice. Kid on the swing like I got pushed to better heights. Goes ahead, I see him good like farsighted. All I gotta do is stay committed and be patient. Whitney Houston, exhale, that's what I've been waiting. Yeah, you get it, like it don't take no rocket scientist. I could tell you bugging and wigging psychiatrist. Without my ladies, I ain't whole, she my better half. Our story ain't completed yet, like I lost a lot of good years, it's hurt me. But like the good year tight, I'm like warranty. Go back home. Go back.
All right, thank you, Mr. Jacobs.
Yes, sir. God bless you.
All right, we'll go ahead and conclude.
Go back home. Go back home. Go back home. Go back home.
All right, thank you, Mr. Jacobs.
Yes, sir. God bless you.
All right, we'll go ahead and conclude. All right, we'll go ahead and conclude. All right, we'll go ahead and conclude. All right, we'll go ahead and conclude.
I just want to go back home. Let me out of jail, prone not to make a wrong. Freedom is priceless without its ill. Baby, you my candy rain, I'm so for real, for real. I just wanna sitting in myself, feeling hella stressed out. Wonder when I'm gonna roll up the day I dress out. Experience opened my mind, taught me different values. I got a diploma, my pop told me, son, I'm proud of you. Achieve no grievance, considering my own life. Gain one to lose one, that's part of the sacrifice. Kid on the swing like I got pushed to better heights. Goes ahead, I see him good like farsighted. All I gotta do is stay committed and be patient. Whitney Houston, exhale, that's what I've been waiting.
All right, we'll go ahead and conclude. All right, we'll go ahead and conclude. All right, we'll go ahead and conclude. All right, we'll go ahead and conclude.
Yeah, you get it, like it don't take no rocket scientist. I could tell you bugging and wigging psychiatrist. Without my ladies, I ain't whole, she my better half. Our story ain't completed yet, like this the rough draft. I know I lost a lot of good years, it's hurt me. But like the good year tire, I'm like warranty.
All right, we'll go ahead and conclude. 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 All right, we'll go ahead and conclude.